Hello and welcome everybody to Around the Battleground. My name is LHS and I am your host. And joining me as always is the young, talented JMac. How you doing, JMac?
I'm doing good. I got some sleep since the last show, so hopefully it won't be passing out or anything like that during this episode.
Yeah, that was good. I felt so bad because we were talking to Husey and me and him were going back and forth and I could see you fading. And I was like, I kept trying to throw it back to you so you would be involved so you wouldn't fall asleep. But I was like, oh no, JMac's gone. So yeah, I was really trying to end it at the end there for you.
Yeah, I only got like 2 hours of sleep that night, so it was a long day for me and just trying to power through it. But we're back now. Got off work, so I'm ready to go.
All right. Last episode was a bit of a jumble. We were initially going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Ended up only talking about season 6 with Husey there, but today we're going to be a little bit more concise. We are going to stick to our schedule. We're going to actually talk about Worlds. You know, it's only been a week, 2 weeks at this point now. Like, geez, yeah, it definitely has been forever. But man, are you going to be able to actually recall these matches? I had to go up and I actually had to go back and watch some of these sets over again so that I would be able to talk about them. Definitely. I mean, had to
kind of. I mean, it's been 2 weeks. It was DreamHack, and being at the venue versus being at home is like a completely different experience. So I got to catch the games as often as I could, but I mean, there's so much going on at DreamHack.
Yeah, I mean, trying to balance, my wife, my dog, the pets, taking shifts from my job. I was watching some of the matches on my phone at work at times. I was really trying to keep up as much as I can. It was rough. Between the placement stuff and this, it was a lot to keep track of, and it felt like it's a very different experience. So this was the first year for me since I've been interested in competitive Smite that I wasn't at Worlds. Every Worlds that I've been a part of the Smite community, I've been at the event. So this was the first time that I spent it, watching it from home. It's a really different experience watching it on stream versus being there. And
oh yeah,
it definitely just sunk it down into my head. Next year I got to make it back to HRX because there's nothing that beats that energy of the live venue. But even it was weird for me because the first year I watched, season 3 was my first Worlds, and I didn't know anybody in the community, right? It was really just me going because I really liked Smite, and I was gonna I Freight Train was really the only person I knew. I remember that much. And I went, I was like, all right, this is kind of fun, this is cool. And I was so glued to all of the games, right? I was watching the Xbox, I was watching all of the PC games and everything. And I really didn't do much other than that. That was all I did. I went there and then I came back. And then the next year I went for season 4. I skipped. I'm not gonna lie. I skipped some of the games, and my focus was largely more on the after event festivities. Right. I was hammered the entire. I don't know that I was sober for any meaningful amount of time at all at Worlds last year. And it was amazing. It was my focus was so much more on the community side of things, right? And it was so much more fun. And then this year to have the complete polar opposite of both, where I'm just watching from home when I can, where I can, and it's just it's an interesting experience. And then I can't imagine the difference for you because you actually kind of got to work the event a little bit. I'm obviously with the college matches and everything, but you were still kind of there in an official capacity. How many times have you been to Worlds at this point?
I believe that was my 4th time being at Worlds because I went season 2 when NRG made their first, or I guess at that time Epsilon made their first World Championships. That was when EU started taking the title. So yeah, I think that's my 4th Worlds now.
And how did this one compare for you as far as working it and being at an official capacity with Hi-Rez versus just going on your own?
So my very first Worlds, obviously I didn't know anybody. I was even though I'd been playing Smite for almost 2 years at that point, I really didn't know a lot of people, and no one that I really knew was going to the event. So my first time at Worlds was just, hey, this is a cool thing I want to go do. So I went and watched. The next time around was when I started doing after my first year of casting. That was when I first did AVGL. So I got, I talked with the people at Hi-Rez. They gave me, a little VIP pass and whatnot. So I got to go hang out. I got to get the cool swag and everything like that. But it was still kind of just me just chilling, not really knowing a lot of people. I think D-Syncs was one of the people who went with me during that one. And we kind of hung out. The next time at Worlds, again, was like, I'm still not quite all that big yet. It's only my second year casting. I'm still getting to know a lot of the community, but more and more people recognize me. I started knowing a lot more people. So it became a lot bigger for me. And then this time around, getting to work the first week on the placement stage, working the desk that entire time. I think I did all 6 days on the desk. I think I only didn't work the desk for 2 sets out of all the placements, which was crazy. It was like the middle 2 sets of the last day or something. I didn't do anything on. And during all of that was just insane because, once you get up onto the desk, it's here's your time on the desk. All right, to the casters. Well, now you have, this 30, 40 minutes to watch these games. For me, I had to do a bunch of clip stuff for them. So that way things can go up onto the Twitter. So I was watching for good plays, trying to keep discussion points, topics going about, and then, oh, hey, they're about to finish. All right, let's go back to the desk. And there were some really fun situations where it's like, all right, guys, Armada's about to end the game against Rival here. Let's walk over to it. And they're fighting Deathwalker. That's not the Titan. What are they doing? They're just okay, well, all right, guys, go back to the room. We'll get back on the desk here in about another 10 minutes or so. And then finally being at the venue in front of the live, obviously more and more people started recognizing me now that I've been doing casting for 3 years. I did the analyst desk, so my face was already out there even more. And having people come up to, for me, having people come up to me, and me being bad, I'm horrible with names. I'm horrible with faces. If I haven't seen your face before and I don't talk to you on the regular, I'm probably not going to recognize you right off the bat. So people will come up to me. I'd be like, who are you? They'd be like, JMac. And they're like coming over, trying to be hugging. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, hey, it's me. I'm like, okay, cool. So, that was, I had a blast at it. Obviously, I didn't watch as many of the games as I would like to because there was so much happening in DreamHack between the indie stage, all the fighting tournaments that were happening, the Sumo Sphere. I don't know if anybody's been to DreamHack where they've seen Sumo Sphere. That's a lot of fun and very tiring. They basically throw you in those giant inflatable hamster balls and you're trying to knock everybody out of the ring. Ton of fun. I recommend if you go to DreamHack to play it. And then Guardians was basically like a mixture of dodgeball and frisbee. Pretty cool onto that one. So, but as far as like the Smite end goes, it was crazy different from just being kind of a name there to being somebody important and working the event. And being up on that stage is 1,000 times different than even being in the studio behind the microphone, on the desk, or even at your home. It is such a vastly different world being on that world stage.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man. Like, it's in my brief time working at the desk, just during like the season 4 split, like the little bit right there, the season 4 fall split, I believe, or end of summer, I think. And then the whatever the NRG Invitational, like it was such a fun time and fun of experience, like being around the players and be able to talk to everybody like that. And it's something that there's nothing else quite like it. And like we sit here and we do this show, we have a lot of fun, we talk to people, but that live energy, being next to the person, everything, there's nothing that quite really measures up. And then you get like a different appreciation and respect for the people that do it day in and day out, right? Like that was the biggest thing. Like I will forever go to bat for all of the casters that I worked with on the desk and everything, because like there's a lot that goes on with that. There's a lot that you talk about behind the scenes and like really getting to know people. And I miss it. I wish I hope to one day get back on that analyst desk to talk with those guys, because I really miss being able to talk Smite at that level with them. But let's actually get into the games. We'll start at the beginning with DreamHack, the first game of Worlds, Dignitas versus Space Station. This was a big game just because it's the biggest team in EU, Dignitas, with the history of choking at LAN. Will they finally be able to put that behind them? And then SSG also kind of combating the choking at the LAN, the world stage, and against EU teams, and their biggest thing, they had brought in Dimmy to coach. There was some flashes that's going to be able to amount to something at placements, but not really. A lot of people thinking like maybe they're holding on to their strats for the World's rounds, but SSG didn't quite look like they had really advanced all that much. I think, like especially in that first game, we thought like, oh, Dimmy's going to come in, they're going to revamp all of their pick ban strategies. We're not going to see traditional Smite SSG anymore, and then we see traditional Smite SSG again. And they looked decent. They didn't just get stomped by Dig. They stayed in the fight for a while, but there was some sloppy play from SSG. They came back to win game number 2, and they looked really strong, and they looked like they could take the fight to Dig. And then game number 3, just not able to really do much of anything. A 25-minute game, really not as close as you would like. 58K gold to 72K gold, like that's not where you want to be.
No.
Sorry, that's the second game. The third game was 65 to 45K, 20 kills to 6. Really not where you want to be. And SSG just looked like they dropped the ball. What do you think SSG's biggest problem here was going into Worlds?
SSG's biggest problem is they didn't, as much as we like to say that SSG played SSG Smite, they didn't play their game. They played the EU style, which is, we're going to try and build this little quick lead. We didn't really do anything. Let's just farm for another 25 minutes and hope that this game goes well. The problem is the Europeans are the professionals at doing nothing for an entire game, and then 30, 35 minutes, they win one team fight and the game is over. And you can't do that against a veteran team like Dignitas. And I think you hit it early on. Both of these teams have a very big history of choking on the stage, but SSG has the biggest problem of choking against EU teams on stage, constantly dropping to NRG, Rival, and now Dignitas coming up onto here. They are just not showing up to fight against these squads. I believe they even dropped to... No, they beat SK earlier on in the placements. That's what I was thinking. They beat SK, but SK is really not all that great of a team, so we won't even really mention onto that. But the problem that I really see with SSG is, even though they brought in Dimmy, they've got this all-star coach. The coach is only really going to tell you what you did wrong, how to improve, and help you in your picks and ban phase in between those matches. Outside of that, it comes the execution. We saw the execution from Andy trying his damnedest to really be the hard carry for his team, but the dual lane was just not showing up well. Jeff and Bear really weren't having all that great of a performance. And not only that, Aquarius wasn't really finding it himself either. And into the mid lane, Ven just felt like he was really much of a non-factor in a lot of those matchups there. Andy did all that he could, but I mean, SSG just didn't have all together as a team. Next season, I don't want to see the trio of Jeff, Bera, Andy. I think that they need to split their ways. I think you said last week there would be some up in arms, and I'll jump onto this one too. You know, Jeff and Bera, who have been together for so long, they've built this chemistry. I think they're too comfortable with each other, and there is such a thing as being too comfortable in anything, whether it's a sporting event, whether it's just talking to your friends casually or playing a competitive game. Sometimes you just get to that comfort point of, it doesn't matter. We're cool. If win or lose, we're still all friends in the end. And that's great. But being friends in the end isn't going to get you a world championship sometimes. And sometimes you need that person to kind of hit the hammer onto you and say, dude, you need to get it together. And we just didn't really see much of it. I don't know if they got it feels like they got the losing end of that trade when they took Ven over Baskin. But at the same time, and we'll talk about, that matchup later on with E United. But SSG just really, I think that their shot was over when they lost hard to Trifecta in the placement stage seeding round. I think for me, even though that match didn't matter, that it was just for fun, I think that game really showed that they are not that big of a team anymore.
Yeah, I think there is just something fundamentally wrong with that squad at this point. I mean, it's hard to, because you lose Baskin, and
Mhm.
Baskin might be the best player in the world mechanically at, everything. It's like Baskin is just really good at what he does. But there's also this the feast and famine part of Baskin. I talked to Kabam about it, and you'll hear us kind of refer to the Baskin tax. And when Baskin was on Space Station, the entire game flowed through him. All of the XP goes through him. All of the decisions go through him. Everything stems from his lane and what he does. And so when you kind of take that away and take a step back, then you've got to fill in that gap, right? And Andy kind of really thrived on letting Baskin make the plays. And then when he's now filling in that gap, it didn't really work. And then you also have Jeff, for whatever reason, this was probably, I think, his worst worlds. I'll go ahead and say, I think this was Jeff Hindlow's worst worlds from a performance factor. He just looked rusty. He looked off. There was a lot of little mistakes just from positioning and decision making, which is something we don't normally see out of Jeff. If there's one thing that Jeff is pretty good at being consistent at, it's his decision making and his positioning. That is, as a support, you can get away with a lot if you're just good at those two things. I mean, you can be nuts mechanically, but then if you have the positioning of Wubbin and the decision making there, you're not going to be able to do too much. Like that, Wubbin was an amazing player, but he just couldn't. He didn't have the brain for it. Whereas Jeff Hindlow kind of has the brain for it. But I think that it might be a point for, especially with all of the roster turnover and change it, everybody's a free agent. We might need to look at, the Jeff and Barra days being over. And I know that sounds sacrilegious, but, sometimes the biggest changes have to come in those positions. I mean, look at every sport. There's always those two guys who always played it with each other, and then one day they don't. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but something big has to change with SSG. And I don't even know that we're going to get it, because Space Station Gaming as an organization really believes in the grassroots, in the players, in the community, and the culture that they've built. And Jeff and Barra are those two guys. They epitomize that. And so I don't know that we'll ever see that change really come, especially with SSG. I can probably say that we could maybe see Vin, Andy, maybe even Aquarius go, because they don't have the same pull that the Jeff and Barra does. Jeff and Barra at this point are a package deal, and I could see SSG building around them and bringing 3 new players as far as mid, jungle, and solo go. Who those players could be, I don't know. It's going to be crazy, but some sort of change is needed with SSG again.
Yeah.
I feel like SSG was the dying hope of the old heads trying to make it back and regain their former glory, and it's just not going to happen, I don't think. But they had their moment. They could have beat Dig. Dig did not control that game themselves. SSG kind of handed it to them, and it was not pretty for SSG at that point. All right, so next up we're gonna look at our second match of Worlds, the Splice versus Obey game. I can't believe, looking back, that was one of the first games, right? That was one where Obey, going into that, looking back at when they played Luminosity told you how to beat Obey, and that is to run at them early and be aggressive. And they don't really know what to do with that. That's how you beat really any EU team right now. That's how United ran through Worlds last year. That's how Splice played a very aggressive play style this year, and teams couldn't adapt to it. Splice came in with the game plan. JMac, what did I say leading up all the way up into Worlds? What was my one harping point about Splice going in?
God, it's hard to recall. It's been so long since we talked about that. Don't give Sanashir Naja?
No. If Splice can play Splice Smite, they have a real chance at Worlds. Because the biggest thing is, we looked at it, we broke it down. Season 3 and Season 5 are are very similar. The meta was stagnant, hadn't changed going into Worlds, And then you have a team of Aurora and Divios coming in who traditionally like to play very different things. And if they can establish a new meta like they did in season 3, they can be very dangerous. And what did they do? They came in, established a new meta, played Splice Smite, and completely demolished everybody. It's like I can see the freaking future, man. Splice came in, they had a game plan, put Moswall on a zone denier mid, whether that's Apwash, whether that's Zeus, whoever, the Vulcan. Put Divios on something that can run at them and do a bunch of damage, but not die. Sino on Neja, Sino on Erlang, Sino on Merc, whatever it takes. And then just put Aurora on a bully, aka Artio, and then Cyclone can play whatever. Like they had such a they just had such an amazing draft coming in. I don't know that any team in recent memory has had the same level of pick bans that Splice did coming into this Worlds. Would you agree or disagree on that?
I don't think so. I mean, again, it was a team of innovation more than anything, and guys playing different things. I mean, let's face it. How many teams were playing Shibalanke before we came into this one? Nobody's playing Shibalanke because nobody wants to play that god. I don't know why, because I think he's one of the most overpowered hunters in the game because of that ultimate. But nobody was playing Shibalanke. Nobody was really giving their hunter player Freya. They were always giving it to their mid laners. That way they could get a ton of farm on their own and get a bunch of items online really early. And I mean, nobody was really coming in expecting a Geb solo aside from anybody but maybe Deathwalker. And here comes Divios playing probably the best Geb I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't think I've ever seen Geb play as good as how Divios played it, not only just in this set, but throughout any of the World Championship stage. I mean, this is a team that came out, they knew what they wanted, and Aggro tweeted this out, and I'm pretty sure it got like 1 million retweets or variations all over the community, but Sino kept getting Naja. And what did we say before Worlds and during Worlds and after Worlds? Stop giving Sino Naja because he is a demon on this god. He's nigh unstoppable when he gets this assassin for his jungle role, and teams just kept giving it to him. And it ended up being the downfall. And when I look back at the drafts for both of these games against Obey, they got 4 out of the same 5 gods. The only thing that changed was Cyclone played Rom played Ho Yi game 2 instead of Rom like he did in game 1. Other than that, Geb, Naja, Apwash, Artio. Geb, Naja, Apwash, Artio. That's the same 4 gods they grabbed in both of those games there. And there really wasn't an answer for them. Game 1 went almost 49 minutes. But when you get to 49 minutes and you have an Apwash, nobody can walk into that ultimate. Not even your tanks can walk in there because all it's going to take is possibly one Sunder from an RTO or a Geb. Now you can't walk in because you're taking 20% more damage. You can't try and stay away because Sino's on Naja can flank the backline and kill your carry. And at this point, it's so much zone denial between Geb and Apwash that there's no way you can approach this team. The siege is nigh impossible for you to fight into. And then game number 2 went a little bit quicker, only took about 32 minutes to drop that one. But I'm going to be real here. I just don't like Chiron into Apwash. And there's a very specific reason, because Chiron, as soon as he tries to fight into Apwash, Apwash throws his 3 on him, and Chiron can't do anything because he's just going to get stunned, take 1 million damage. I don't know. That's just me. But at the same time, Rafford just got bullied in game number 2. When you look back at the scoreline, 0-9 game 2 on Ymir against this fairly mobile and destructive team. You just can't go into the Ymir. And Ymir wall is not a counter to Apwash anymore. I think that was the mentality, was, this wall is going to stop Apwash's damage. If he drops the ult, it doesn't matter anymore. Obey came in thinking that they knew how to take them down. And we mentioned if you just run at EU, well, they can run at EU early, but in a late game, it still comes down to the sieging. In the end, Splice just had a better siege team and a better anti-siege comp as well. They had the best of both. They could fight into your base, and they could keep you from fighting into theirs. And that's why their drafting and their god pools were so distinct when it came to this Worlds, is they knew exactly what they wanted, and they knew that they needed to draft both sides of the coin. We can't just have you can never break our base because, well, maybe we'll never be able to break yours. And they can also draft we need to break your base, but have something on the back foot for ourselves here. And I think that's why Splice was able to win out these 2 games.
Yeah, you going in this game, Obey is probably one of the better team fighting teams in the
Mhm.
whole league. So Splice being able to come in here and fight Obey on their own terms, on their own turf, really like they're whatever. They took it to them, and really showed if you can beat Obey at team fighting, you can pretty much beat anybody.
Mhm.
That's how that really goes. And Pretty Prime had a ridiculous game one, was a little bit more quiet game two, but one of the things that really stuck for me for Obey was, especially going back even to the placement rounds, was how quiet Ataraxia had been.
Mhm.
There was that game of placements where Nate had Freya, but he didn't really do anything on the Freya. I know this has been a down year for ADCs and dual lanes in general, but it really felt like Nate didn't know how to really adapt to that and play his own style and really make impactful plays in this new hunter meta and everything. And I feel like that's one of the bigger stories there. And then Raffer game 2, 0-9, dying just hands over fist more than anybody else in the game. And
Mhm.
that really and I feel like they, like you said, they did this last year where they just couldn't adapt to the meta that Splice was
No.
bringing. They got the same picks that they wanted. At a certain point, you got to force a change. How do you let Sino get the Neja? Pick it for Twig. That's all you have to do first. Like, just pick that away. If I'm looking at Splice and I'm Obey, if I'm Hazer, who I'm looking at the Splice's roster, you know who I immediately try to take a shot at every pick bans? At least to like start the game off. I'm
Sino and Mozzie.
targeting Moswell. I'm going to take him off the Posh, or I'm going to put it on Prime. Like I don't understand letting Moswell have the Posh. Just such a brain dead god right now, and especially when you have Pretty Prime. I think Pretty Prime has the best positioning of any mid in the world right now. This year he played out of his mind, nuts. Realistically, Pretty Prime is responsible for the Pwashes and the Zeuses being so amazing right now, especially the Zeus. Like, they play very similarly, and they didn't play either one. And those are such great picks. Splice banned the Zeus away both games, but then you could have picked you could have picked something for yourself, Obey. I don't understand the mentality there. Aurora has literally only played RDO at like 10 out of 11 games
Mhm.
leading up to this point. You gotta throw Splice off somehow.
Gotta do
And they just
something.
didn't. It was like a repeat of last Worlds where they were like, okay, we can fight this. I would have been really interested to see what could have been if this was like a best of 5. And see if Obey could have done the turnaround, adapted to the Splice playstyle. I think Splice really, really benefited from this year's format for Worlds, where they had to play a best of 2 to start it off against a very strong team. I think if this goes to a best of 3, I think it probably ends the same way, but I think Obey probably win a game. I think they win game 3 going into this is how I would imagine it going. But Obey just something wasn't there. Now, I I don't know, who do you look at as far as Obey goes? Like, if you had to, I mean, you look at Rafford game 2 and then game 1, Nate went 2-8. Like the dual lane just kind of let down Obey. I think this
I,
Worlds.
I think that was the big one. Was just dual lane just felt so useless, really, for that team. Raffer never really even performed in the first game, and Nate really didn't do anything in game 2 either. He didn't obviously go to 2-8 in that second game, but I mean, between those two, they just did not have the performance that they needed. You mentioned in placements how Nate had Freya and just didn't do anything, and that's because they based all their momentum off of the Pretty Prime show. Papa Primo is here to carry us all to the heavens, and we'll win world championships off of it. But then he didn't, and it
Mm-hmm.
felt like Prime was playing these kind of weirder picks. We saw the Jean-Quy mid kind of make a small resurgence, but in the end, Jean-Quy mid is still just going to be Jean-Quy. It's not going to be that hit you in the face Vulcan or Zeus or Opwash or anything like that. And they had a little bit better chance with the Discordia, but they just never got the opportunity. And Splice really did their targeted focus. We're going to make sure that if Pretty Prime's going to be their carry, we're just going to keep Pretty Prime from doing Pretty Prime things. And then they mentioned how Nate was kind of there just as in case in his Freya games. He's there just in case Prime needs a little bit of help. And we get to that late game, we have a Freya fully farmed up, but he wasn't on a Freya in those games. And he didn't turn up and be the carry that the team needed. So I really think that moving forward, if this squad as a whole, which with all the talks of Season 6, we have no idea where any of this is going to happen. I think that dual lane really needs to look back on this and figure out what their weakness is moving forward and try and work on that to make it a strength. But I mean, for me, that whole game, or both of those games came down to dual lane just never really came up, and Maswal kept getting it Opwash. I mean, stop giving people Opwash. He had a 70% pick and ban rate going into or a 70% win rate going into the World Championships, one of the highest of any of the gods picked whenever he was. One of the highest win rates of any god in the World Championships. And they just gave it to Maswal twice. Now, that's all I got to say on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's as much as we could really say on that without really getting too just beating a dead horse at that point, right? Yeah. So let's go to our next game. Our next game is going to be Rival versus NRG. Do we really want to spend any amount of time on this? Like, it was really unfortunate with Yaman not being able to come here, and unfortunately, Homie just wasn't able to fill Yaman's shoes right there. NRG just they lacked the synergy and the feel that Yaman would have brought. It's a real shame. I think with Yaman on the squad,
much better
they might be able to take Rival and beat Rival out here. So Rival wins 2-0, but there's a little bit of asterisk there, like the what could have been here. Probably one of the greatest injustices of recent worlds is not having Yaman there. Full strength NRG makes this worlds a lot more interesting. So unfortunately, we're not going to spend too much time on that game. So next up, we've got Dignitas versus Splice, the marquee matchup on this side of the bracket. I feel like Dignitas, the best team in EU, Splice, the up-and-comer. Will Dignitas put their land woes behind them? Will Splice prove they're the real deal? I feel like this was the game that solidified them and their position. Splice 3-0 Dignitas in kind of shades of last year where E United kind of just surprisingly ran through everybody. I feel like Splice kind of did the same, especially with through Dig. They kept to their strategy. You had Aurora on an aggressive support, Cyclone on the X-Ball to shut down, make everybody fight in the dark. Maswal again on the Opwash. They took away the Opwash game 2. Who did he play? Played the Zeus. Zone denial. Game 3, played the Zeus. Everybody thought they could target Maswal after the first game. It's like, oh, he just won because he's on Opwash. Bam, you take away the Opwash. All right, now he's got Zeus. He does the same thing that he does on the Opwash. Zone denial, lots of damage. Let the carries take care of everything else. And shocker, Aurora plays RDO 2 out of the 3 games. There's just, what can you do against this comp? They can play all of the top picks, and you have to take those away. You cannot let them have the overpowered stuff. But then you're leaving all of their comfort picks, all of the stuff that they want to actually play, get left up because you have to take all the really strong meta stuff away. And so it's a lose-lose situation there. And that's why I kind of say Splice going into this had the best pick ban strategy out of anybody in at least recent memory. I don't know that anyone's done it as well as they have. And then Dig just so close, but just so far behind. They could have won the game. They could have picked up a game, but Aurora said no. denying them any chance at Worlds, 1v5ing as an RDO, saving the game single-handedly. I think that's probably my favorite Worlds moment ever, is watching Aurora save the Titan and protect the Titan and push them out of the base. And I think at that point you could see, I think that epitomizes all of the problems this Dig roster has ever had right there. That one play, you could have ended the game. You had one person stopping you from winning the game and you backed off. You don't aggress. You don't take the shot and you end up losing because of it. And I don't know, this Dignitas roster, we've kind of said for NA, CLG was the biggest, something didn't work, so we got to break it up. But I feel like Dignitas is now at that point, something is obviously not working. Is this point the time you've got to break it all up for Dignitas?
I don't know if the whole team needs to break up, but I do think that it might be time to retire for some of these players. We're getting at the point in Smite now where this is the 5th World Championships, but we've had a launch tournament, we've had the closed beta, and then the open, and all of these different things in between. Smite's been going on for the better part of over 6 years now. And I think this is where we start looking at these veteran players here. We look at the Zap bands of the game. We look at, onto the EU side, we start looking at the Trix Tanks, the Cuvos, Variety, all these kinds of players who have been around for such a long time. And it just feels like they're really not performing as well as these new kids on the block. They're not up to the level of the Sams and the Pauls of, say, Trifecta's age here. I think at this time, it's really time to sit down and think of potential retirement for some of these players. Not saying that they're bad or anything like that, but they're just not up to that level anymore. Their head's not in the game when it comes to these LAN environments, especially for Team Dignitas. Again, we saw kind of a weaker side in the support here, where Trix Tank was really falling behind in all of these games. He really wasn't having a good performance. 0-5 game 1, 1-8 game 2, and 0-6 in game number 3. And some people might say, oh, well, he's the support, he's supposed to die, but a good support doesn't always have to die. Sometimes, if I die, but we get 4 kills in the process, that's something. But when you look at his slash lines after 0-5 5, part of 5 of the 7 kills his team got, 1-8 7 out of the 12, and then 1-6 3, part of the 11 kills. He's not quite making those assists really worth it when you look on the flip side, where Sino 8-3, 9-3, and 11-2 in the jungle. They're just not up to that level anymore. I don't think that Cuvo is quite the same that he used to be. He's not this big bad jungler anymore, at least on the LAN. We saw him in the online portion. This team really looks so strong, but when you throw them in the LAN, it just feels like they're not all there. It feels like being there together doesn't necessarily bring them together as a team. And I think moving forward in season 6, some of these players might look towards retirement, but for sure, I think that there needs to be some kind of split up amongst these players here. It just really didn't feel like it worked out for them.
Yeah, I really feel at this point that what has to be the problem here is that Dignitas just needs a leader. I don't think there's a coherent leader, a solid voice to lead them through the dark and kind of pull them up. I feel like Splice has that. Aurora is a big personality. Cyclone is a veteran. He will speak up and do something in game to kind of rally everybody. Sino, talking to him, he's really smart. He can lead the team, very confident. So Splice had that in spades, whereas this Dignitas roster kind of was more reserved, and I think that's what really made them pay. And I think that these players individually still have a lot of smite left in their career, but I don't think they play it together at this point. I think they're definitely going different ways moving forward, and that's okay. Change is good. The change can be very good, and a change of scenery can really make all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
So moving on, our next game, Team Rival versus Trifecta. What a roller coaster this match was. Lots of potential on both sides to win and throw. Sam and Paul really proving it's the Sam Paul League at times. Sam really continuing, it felt like, his monster run during off the placement rounds. I think Sam has, over the last year, comparing when he made his debut, if you're eager, to where he is now, Sam has made so much improvement. And then Paul, the changes to mid lane, being able to carry and be so aggressive out of the mid lane really benefited him a lot. And him being able to really give it his all and really take it to this veteran rival roster. You got to think, if this roster, with its young core of Sam, Paul, and Neil, next year they have got to be monsters. If this group sticks together, I mean, you could almost exchange Scary D and Zap out of the squad and replace them. You know, with either other young players or some other vets, maybe an EU influence. This team could be absolutely disgusting. Rival just came in, had the experience, had the ability to really control what Trifecta wanted to do. The interesting matchup for me was how Wolfie was going to be able to withstand Paul. Wolfie has been a lot more passive this year and has kind of been one of the weaker players for Rival, in my opinion. But he was able to kind of weather the storm, really rely on Ice, and Collis to really come in there and really control the mid lane and set up kills for them. He had the Raijin I think he had all 3 games. Raijin proved to be a really big pick for this Worlds. Again, being able to clear, being able to set up, having a lot of utility and damage out of that Raijin role. It just was too much. You know, Paul got Freya in the end. He got his Uller. You know, he did all he could. And, you know, Neil tried to go the EU strat route with the Finra and the Odin, but just couldn't really beat the combination of what Rival was brought. I think Rival played a better team game than what Trifecta was able to do. And in the end, that's what really cost him. And Rival 3-0 Trifecta.
I think that's the big thing there, is that Rival, where one player or here and there might struggle individually in a single game, the team always ends up coming together for the better of themselves and can really hold and carry each other as we move forward into the late game. I mean, it used to be the Deathwalker show, and then it was the Ice show, and then we had Kalas. Everybody's just got to ban his 3 gods because that's all he plays. And even for a time, Vote was one of the star players. Wolfie never really had his time in the spotlight here, but really showing and holding it to, I would say, probably the most aggressive mid laner in the entire game, being Paul. Paul is the, when your god pool consists of Freya, Ul, and Habwa, those 3 gods scream, I want to kill you on cooldown in the mid lane every single time you walk in. And when you can hold your own against him, I think that's saying a lot for Wolfie. He may have been the weaker performer of the team, but I think overall in that set, he proved that he can hold his own against these matchups there. We all saw that. Raijin, as you said, again, was one of the most relevant picks at Worlds. And as much as I hate to say it, Raijin went kind of untouched for a good portion of the season. And all of a sudden, people realized, oh, he still has a lot of damage and a lot of range and a lot of control. And basically a bunch of, hey, stop fighting us kind of mechanics and tools in with that one, and really come up big on there. And one thing that, even though they lost in this set, one thing I did like from Trifecta, especially from Sam, was he started flexing that god pool a little more, going into what I call more traditional Sam. We saw almost exclusively like Pele, Erlong, Shen throughout the placements from him. It's pretty much Pele, Erlong, and then we may have gotten a Robin or something like that. Here we saw 3 different gods. We saw Robin, we saw Serket, and we saw Bots. And on all of those, he didn't perform bad on them by any means. He may not have gone positive on it, but most of the team didn't go positive in that instance onto it. But he held his own, and he was playing to the strength of the gods, which played into his strengths of being very aggressive. And I think that by that nature, because this squad is so young, or at least the majority of the squad is so young, there's a lot to be feared moving into the next season. Paul has gone from being the Habwa Freya one tricks and the Ul one tricks to showing that he has a bigger god pool. Now that he's had that time to grow and show that, I can only imagine how much more dangerous he's going to be moving in to season number 6. But one thing that really stood out for me here, Zatman didn't show up entirely. This set, he definitely did a lot better, coming in big 5-2 on the Freya, 3-5 on the Nuwa, which I'm still not a big fan of this Nuwa ADC. If I'm being 1,000% honest, I understand it. You stay alive, you farm, late game, you ult, and it does like 800 damage to everybody, starts the team fight off. Woo. But Zatman never really showed up very much in this entire sweep of the tournament. It's pretty much the Sam Paul show. But for me, the big kind of standout here was, what was Scary D doing in this set? I mean, Scary D just didn't really feel like he had much of a presence at all in really any of his games. The Cerberus, he kind of threw a couple ultimates out here and there, but never really did anything off of it. He had the Baron Samdi, which it's Baron. Let's be real. He has control, and that's pretty much it. But we were never really screaming Scary's name, even throughout the placement stage. Scary D was very quiet this World Championships compared to when he had his big breakout in his rookie year. He was one of the big shot players who could be thought to be one of the best solos in the world for a short time. But this time around, I just didn't really see anything too impressive out of those two side lanes there. I think with that core three of the young squad moving forward for Trifecta, it can be really big going into season 6. But I think this set specifically showed that the core young squad of this group is the one that's here to perform, where the more veterans and Scary D here just didn't really have it in them to go up against this rival squad.
Yeah, I agree. I think Zatman is an interesting metric, because like how the Zatman goes, Trifecta usually follows, right? If Zatman is able to get his kills and is able to not, go full zap and die, Trifecta looks pretty good. I don't think the Nuwa pick was the way to go. They got close in game 2, but I just don't think when your back is against the wall, you pick the Nuwa ADC. It just didn't really feel right for me, especially on Zap. You're really mitigating Zap at that point. You gotta live and die by the Zap man. Give Zap man Uller. Give Zap man Cupid. Give Zap man these picks that can make big flashy plays. Who ye, right? Like, you just got to give Zap the potential and the ability to go kill himself, like by being aggressive, but also make a highlight play that really changes the game. So Trifecta, I really am interested to see. I really hope that Sam and Paul stay together. That is really my hope going into season 6. Anything else, I would be really disappointed by. I hope Trifecta really largely stays together, but Sam, Paul, and Neil, I really hope that trio is able to grow together, because I think there's a lot of potential there. So that leads us to the final games of Worlds, Splice versus Rival. Going into this, I had Splice as my team to win Worlds. Were you on the Splice train, or were you on the Rival train going into the final set?
Going into Worlds itself, I was on the Splice train, actually. I put up on Twitter my bracket prediction, and the only thing I believe I got wrong initially was the Trifecta E United set. And then obviously following after that one, I didn't think that Trifecta themselves would be able to take down Rival. But I had E United moving on originally for that, and then it was going to be an NA final. But I had Splice all the way. In fact, I predicted a 3-2 here for the grand finals. I can find my bracket somewhere on my Twitter, but I was on the Splice train all the way. Before Worlds even started, I was in 2 different bracket challenges. I had Hi-Rez Finch's bracket challenge he put up on Twitter, and then the fantasy league that I'm in was also doing a bracket challenge. And I submitted both of them with the bracket name, The Spliciest Timeline. And it was a Splice going all the way onto this one. So,
all right, I love it. We didn't talk about E United Trifecta. We'll touch on that real quick. Trifecta being able to beat E United honestly is what sets up Splice to win Worlds. Splice has had the hardest time over throughout the year with E United. If E United plays against Splice instead, that could be a really different bracket, could be different Worlds altogether. But Trifecta able to take out E United. A lot of that going to just some dysfunction out of playing through Baskin. I mean, we've seen it a million times. You live by the Baskin, you die by the Baskin. And Trifecta was just able to play better as a team. I feel like Paul and Baskin are both really aggressive out of the mid, but Paul does it with the added grace of being a bigger team player like Vin, right? He combines Baskin and Vin to really make this transcendent aggressive mid play style. It's really watching Paul has been a huge treat this postseason, from placements to worlds, and then Sam just coming out of nowhere and just being a dominant force. Trifecta, we talked about it all again against Rival. They have a bright future ahead of them. And E United, I don't know that team sticks together either at this point. Like they won Worlds last year, and then this year they get, first rounded by Trifecta. That's not where you want to be.
No.
Something big has happened. They could go the dig route and give it one more year. But Baskin's already said he's not going to play. So you got to find a new mid. And then at that point, do you start looking to make other changes as well? Do you look to replace your jungler? Do you look to replace your solo laner? You've got some spicy EU talent coming over. You might as well look at exploring some other options, Who knows, though? All right, now let's go into Splice versus Rival. Two teams having very interesting styles. Splice starting off very committed to the invading of the duo lane to push their lead, to push duo ahead, make duo lane irrelevant on the other side, and make it so they just can't play the game. And Rival on the other end just kind of, we can out team fight you. We can react to any situation you throw at us better than you can handle it, and we're going to win, and we're going to come out on top from that. And Splice just able to walk in. Obviously, Rival and Jackal and all them had done their research. Immediate Opwash ban, immediate Zeus ban. Take it right to Maswell. Make him beat you. In game one, it absolutely worked. You get the Ares, you shut down the picks for Splice. You really give them that hard time. You're burning beads. The Shablanki's making them fight in the dark. Raijin is just doing absurd amount of damage. Robin, Rival figured out Splice and what they want to do. And Splice just wasn't quite ready for it, especially the Ares. The Ares broke down their comp. Moving forward, they took out Ares from the game. Ares was not allowed to be played anymore throughout Worlds. Splice made sure of that. The ability to say, we can't play against that pick, so we're going to replace our Freya ban with an Ares ban. That is what Worlds is all about. That's what Obey wasn't able to do. That's how they weren't able to react and adapt and change up their pick strategies. Alpha, I know he was really hard on himself after Worlds about his pick ban strategy for the last game, but he gave his team such a good advantage where he could to start this game out. They were in the position to win Worlds because of him. And then Splice come back. They get the Neja. They get the Geb Artio. They Freya on Cyclone. Turns out to be huge. You don't give Cyclone the Freya. Splice win 2 in a row on the back of Cyclone and Sino. Sino gets the Neja 2 games in a row.
Ooh,
big mistake out of the Rival. It really felt like Rival almost had the chokehold on Splice in game 2 until Splice just said, no, we don't have to lose this. We can win this. And then it just felt like a brand new team. Splice win that second game, win the third game. Rival come back in the fourth. We go to game 5. Game 5 is a bit of a one-sided affair, if we're being honest. Sino getting Merc. We got Terra, we got Merc, we got Opwash, Fenrir, Freya. That is the most stacked lineup and comp you could ever hope for, and it is too good for Rival. This has got to be one of the best sets of Smite we've ever witnessed. I think this is right up there with Dig rival from Valencia from last year. That was an amazing set. This is right up there with it. Probably some of the greatest games we've ever seen. Splice take home the hammer. Rival, a bridesmaid yet again. But I don't think Rival can hold their head low for any of this. They played amazing Smite. They took Splice to the limit. Splice, just the last game, I talked to Kabam, and the way that he puts this is really great, and I won't ruin it for you guys because it's a really funny moment when it happens, but AJ just kind of got ahead of himself in the last pick bans, and it made sense if you were really close, but Splice just able to take a step back and like, okay, well, we're just going to do this and really throw AJ's idea really out the window. I've kind of monopolized all the time for this set. So JMac, bring us home for the Splice Rival set.
Splice and Rival was just both of these teams honestly playing to their perfect play styles. The team fighting for Rival and the Splice, being weird, being all in, being on the back foot, and then winning out in the sieges. For me, the telltale of it was, even though that last game, AJ got ahead of himself, it does come down to the execution. This Nike pick, and I don't want to say one pick ruins the game here, but the thing that Nike is picked for, and this is the point that I want to hit home on game number 5. The whole reason you pick Nike is she can soak up an absurd amount of damage when late game hits. She gets 6 slotted. She pops that ultimate with her second ability active with it, a 60% health shield. Almost impossible to kill this chick. What happens? Aurora jumps on him, stuns him, hits him with the Sunder, brings him to the team, and by the time that he's hit the ground, the shield is gone, and he's lost half of his health, doesn't even have enough time to jump away, and he's gone. That is the true veteranship coming out of this Splice team, and the knowledge of, we know how to kill anything that comes at us, whether it be a full build, full health shield Nike, or any other god in the game. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the player or the god. Splice adapted to the game. You mentioned it. Ares did not get to see play at all throughout the rest of that set. Game 1, Splice recognized, there's nothing. No more Ares. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to play it. We don't want you to play it. No more from them. They adjusted throughout the time. Being Sino got his Naja multiple times. He got his Ratatosker that didn't work out so well. The Mercury did okay for him. Moswall just kept getting Moswall gods. It felt like the first few games was on point. Let's ban out Moswall. No Opwash, no Zeus, none of that. And then what did they do in game 5? They let Moswall get Opwash. And he went, I believe, 5-1 in that or 5-2 in that last game. And Cyclone got on another carry between Frey and Shibalanke. Splice just came to play Smite and play it better than their opponents. And I think that's what ultimately came down to it, is while both these teams know how to play against the other, know what they want to do for it, I think just the sheer passion and adaptability out of the boys of Splice is what really ultimately won them. Whether AJ wants to hang his head over the faulted picks and bans, it does still come down to the execution more often than not in the game. Picks and bans will help you, but when a bad pick or a bad ban is made, you have to capitalize on what you've done. And it just didn't really seem in that last game that it worked out well for them. Splice come out big, and I'll only briefly talk about it. I mean, I don't know if you were going to mention it or not. The NACE game did happen in World Championship 2. College finals happened, and it went as expected. UIUC just steamrolled over Carleton. Meerkat got Loki game number 1, and I cried a little bit on stage with Tolly as we sat there for 45 minutes and watched Meerkat do Meerkat things in game 1. And then game 2 just really showed the weakness of Carleton of they can't team fight. They just can't team fight. And that's the problem that they've had really all season long is if they don't get their lead, they can't fight in the team fights later, and then it's nothing. They lost a 5v4 multiple times. I think that's the name of the game for that one. I won't go too far into NACE. I'll probably have my own thing on that on my channel or something like that, or my Twitter later on about my final thoughts of the NACE season that I'm working on wrapping up. But overall, I mean, Worlds was insane, and I'd like to say the I told y'all so. Splice win worlds. Let's go.
It was so very frustrating to see Carlton go there, and then for them not to have adapted or evolved at all from the online portion, and then they picked on her. Okay. Oh, they picked for an entirely early game comp. Okay. Oh, they can't team fight. They lost. All right. Well, surely the game 2, they'll have a trick up their sleeve. Surely. Oh no, they did it again. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. It was rough.
But
it was very rough.
It was rough to watch history repeat itself there. But, like you said, this world, was amazing, regardless of what happens with season 6, who retires and everything. This was a really good year for Worlds. We got a best of 5 to end it all. We had a really great storyline with Splice being the bottom, then going to the top. We see the rise of Trifecta. We had a lot of good storylines going into Worlds, and they all kind of really paid off. I really can't wait to see the script that gets created for next year to top this one. Hopefully we can do that. So that's it for breaking down Worlds. So next up, before we move to our interview with Kabam, we're going to do a little bit of news because with season 6 here, we've got a lot of stuff going on. JMac, have you been following all of the Twitlongers? I assume you have.
I pop in them as occasionally as I can, but I haven't been able to fully keep up with them as of right now.
There are a lot. I think the biggest ones that we really should touch on are Baskin. Baskin no longer going to play in season 6. That is a big development there. One of the best Smite players in the world. No longer going to be playing. You've got Emilidu not playing. You've got Yaman not playing. A lot of big names for EU not making the jump. Hazer's also announced he's not going to come. I think Prime has also announced he's not going to come. Maniac, I don't think is going to play either. I don't know if that's just speculation or if that's been confirmed yet. I don't remember. But there's just a lot of now potential moving forward for these SML players and for some really wacky and crazy SPL rosters. From what I'm hearing behind the scenes, we might not see a single NA or EU team. And that's pretty big considering, rival, all EU. We've got the defending world champs, all NA. Even I've heard even they're not really, everybody's kind of looking. Everyone's keeping their options open. Nobody's committing to change quite yet. And I don't think we get any change until the end of the next month, into December probably. That's when all the announcers probably start making it. But it's a really big. I talked with Cabom a little bit about season 6, and I got his opinions on it. You'll be hearing that up next. But JMac, you and I, last week we really talked it into death, so I don't think you and I really have to go over it anymore. But as far as the news goes, I think that's pretty much the biggest news. Is just going to be covering the Twitlongers as they come in and see who's actually retiring and who is actually going to be around for season 6. If you haven't already, I would check out the Lasbra Google Doc that has everybody listed on whether or not they are looking for team or if they're retired, like where everybody is right now. Where it's a big compilation of all the Twitlongers and everything. That's a really good source to see what season 6 is going to look like. So go out and find that if you can. I think that's it for the live portion of the show. We're going to switch over to Kabam. JMac, do you have anything you want to add that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I think for other news updates, there was another org that did mention that they're going to be hopping into the Smite scene Play HS, which is a new high school league that's going to be starting up, I think, in February for Smite, and I think Paladins as well. So if you are in high school and you play Smite or Paladins, get a team together, and there's possibility you might be able to play maybe for some scholarship money or maybe just gems. They haven't really announced much onto that, but we do know that there's now a high school league in the works for Hi-Rez to move forward. So if you're in high school, look forward to it. No new updates for the college scene. As soon as I hear something, believe me, I'll be the first person to be shouting it to the rooftops and shouting it out for everybody to follow on to that one. But I think that's all onto the non-professional side, onto more of the community and amateur end of it. So look forward to the high school league and keep updates. And as soon as I find out for college, everybody else will.
Yeah, because we have the Gym Cup for NACE starting up soon, right? Is that gonna be televised at
Right.
all or broadcasted?
I'm not sure. I'll see what my schedule is looking like. I would like to do that just to have some more stuff to cast, depending on how. For me, it's going to depend on if NACE does an official tournament alongside the Gem Cup after, if
Mhm.
AVGL steps in and does an official tournament. For me, the Gem Cup's not going to be as big for the stakes. The way that they mentioned it's going to be best of 3, just like the regular season was. It's going to be the standard. I think it's going to be another double elimination bracket. It's gems up for the prize instead of the scholarship money. And the seeding for that is going to be based off how you did during the during the main season of play. So maybe we'll see some better matches as it comes through. From what I've heard, there are quite a few of those teams who probably just don't even really care that much, especially ones that got first rounded very early. The low level teams probably won't see them through. I'm not sure exactly how well Gym Cup will go. I might cast some of it just to see what happens. There is no official broadcast for it at the moment, though. Just like there wasn't for NACE, that was covered by myself and whoever I could get to join me, or Jithens maybe if he did production. But that's about all that I know, and there's still no official word on when that will start and how all of those and the end prize and all that yet.
All right. So that's gonna be it for our live portion. We're gonna switch over to the Kabam interview, and that's gonna close out our show. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoy this interview. It's a lot of fun for me, and I hope Kabam gets a lot of recognition that he deserves because he's a really smart guy. So I hope you get a lot out of this. Hello and welcome. Welcome everybody to Around the Battleground. My name is LHS, and this is our interview for the week. Today we are joined by Kabam, the coach for Splice and current reigning champs of Smite. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I've been looking forward to talking to you, and it's we kind of met recently. My NACE team is in Rochester, which is where Splice is headquartered, and you guys were really gracious enough to have us over and kind of talk to us at the right before you guys headed down. So that was a lot of fun. My kids were
Yeah.
like freaking. They were geeking out the whole time, and then afterwards, like, oh, can't believe we got to talk to pro players, and so it was a really fun time to just talk to you guys, and then having that interaction with you guys, and then being able to like. I'm always going to be a big Aurora fan, right? He's just been one of the guys who I've been following since I got into Smite, and then having that interaction on top of it, so it was really good to have you guys go down to Worlds and watch that extra little interaction with you guys really made it like the fan favorite in me. It was
That's
so
awesome.
terribly
Yeah.
worded. I'm sorry.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
You heard any of my
but
interviews on stage before the games? I get it. I do.
yeah, it's how nervous were you for those interviews compared to drafting for those games? Like, were you more nervous for the interviews being on a public stage like that? Because I know some people get affected by that, and then like your drafting is your job, so that's like second nature. But like the public
Mhm.
speaking can be a little bit more
So
nerve
I
wracking.
actually wasn't nervous at all for the interviews, but I realized at one point during our dig interview that it sounded like. Am I allowed to swear on this before I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so well, the way I said it made it sound like I said that Obey was shit, and that was not my intention. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't. I'm not really a person to trash talk, so it felt a little weird that I missed the mark on that. But I said what I wanted to say regardless, so I didn't feel too bad.
Okay. There's so much stuff to talk about. I mean, obviously, we got to touch on you guys' world's run and everything that led up to
Mhm.
that. But I kind of want to focus about the first part of this just on you because I really feel like, I mean, going into when you talked to the team I coach, I really didn't know a lot about you. Like I had
Right.
known you've been around for a while. I knew you were the coach for Splice, and you'd been coaching like with Aurora. You'd been with Aurora and Divios and those guys for a little bit now. But
Mhm.
like I didn't know much about you as a coach. Like I feel like Slaney got more spotlight than you did as a coach, right? So like it
Yeah.
was one of those things where like what is, because you look at the team, you look at Splice and you see Divios and Aurora, who are probably two of like the most intelligent players at those roles. Like Divios is a guy who will spend 6 hours in jungle practice practicing one
Mhm.
thing, right? And just
Right.
iterating like items and builds and like everything you can imagine. And then Aurora, I legitimately think Aurora knows every number of ability, of like cooldown, everything of that in the game. And so you look like, well, when you have those two guys, like, what is their coach like? What's Kabam do? Like, right? Like, there's all those like,
Mhm.
what's Kabam bringing? And then like actually sitting down and talking to you, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. The what you were bringing to the team, the interactions I got from you with Aurora and Sino, like all of that was just like it all kind of put it into perspective for me. But
Mhm.
do you feel like the last year or so, like you you were kind of underrepresented as one of the coaches in the scene?
Yeah, but I don't think that it was like without reason, right? I have coached since season 3, so if you didn't know I was coaching this team, you didn't know about any of that either. I coached Envy in the fall, and that was Skilodon, Cyclone, Kiki, Oceans, and Mike. After that, I coached ALG for that whole year. Obviously, not the most successful team. And then this year, I was so I can understand if the opinion of me was that I was a person that was brought on as a like coach, and my role was actually just to be there if they went to a LAN. So I get it.
Mhm.
It wasn't like my heart wasn't broken over it or anything.
But
Um,
like, and yeah, that I feel like that was largely like the way people looked at it, right? It was, oh, Kabam, he's like that old player. You know, he's just kind of on teams as a coach to like to make the lands, like, you know, it's like the
mhm.
slap on the back, you know, they be brought along. But then like I spent 5 minutes having a conversation with you, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah,
Like this guy is super smart, super intelligent, and like I have to imagine, you've had a conversation with any of the casters ever, and so that they
mhm.
have to then have known like your knowledge base, and uh, it just kind of blows me away that we like none of that was captured until basically at the land, and then the narrative was starting like, oh, Kabam's a good coach. And
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that was kind of just basically attributed to you got your fall split where you guys really just came together and like everything got solidified.
Right. I mean, when you really look back at it, right? Like Hazer became a big deal when he moved from Rival to Obey, and they had their really good run at Worlds season 3, I think.
Mhm.
Alpha Jackal got his credit for all of season 4 because he was at the lands and you saw him up there with his notebook. You saw him yelling at his team. Like he was in the spotlight, right? So like I wasn't there, so there's no narrative to have, right? I was on a team with the group that I was with. And I was the beach house guy, right? That was the whole narrative up until fall. So like I didn't have a moment for the casters to talk about. I think so they just didn't force it, and I think that
Feel now to like now that Worlds is come and gone and like everybody's kind of realized that like, oh, Kabam's pretty amazing, and like that spotlight is coming in. Is like, does that change anything for you?
so the past few years have been like really hard for me because obviously it's hard to convince your family that this is the right thing to do, and when like it doesn't feel like anyone's rooting for you, it really like hurts to not have that validation. So that's been like a really positive force in my life. I felt generally like a lot happier. I've felt like I've had a huge weight off my shoulders. My whole family's now like supportive of me, and they had never been interested in it at all. Yeah, I don't know. It definitely like it changed my life for the better in ways that I would not have expected it to. Because obviously, if I wanted that attention, I would have like made more of an effort to be involved in content stuff, which is what I'm doing now because I want Smite to do better than it's doing right now. So I figure putting myself out there and trying to be someone that is accessible and consumable is important because I don't know how much Smite has of that or will have of it going into season 6, depending on how everything rolls out with the changes. So that's sort of where I'm at, where I want to step in and like try to be there and be that person, so people have content that they a popular YouTuber or something. They just want like content that's digestible and easy to understand. That's sort of the role I want to fill.
I feel like that's like an underserved thing in Smite right now because like I feel like this year has finally like is the nail in the coffin of like the importance of coaches to Smite, right? I feel like that's we finally got to that point where like you can't have Smite without having coaches. Like that's if you want to perform at the highest level, that's just something you have to do. Like that I don't think there's any arguing that anymore, right? And so one of the things that like just doesn't exist for Smite at any level is like, well, how do you become a coach? How do you learn to be a coach? Like, what are those skills like? So like that's a whole like a lot of coaches just aren't like making as much content. I think the biggest content creator as far as coaches go right now is really was Alpha Jackal. Alpha Jackal does his tier list, he does this like all of that, and it's all super helpful. I mean, especially for like me when I'm trying to like when I'm going from patch to patch, I'm doing my own research, and then like having Alpha Jackal is like a rock to look towards, right? Like it's like okay, that's what he thinks. How can I iterate on his thinking and everything like that? And so are you aiming to do any of like I don't know, like we've had players kind of do like Emilzy. Emilzy is a great example where he does like his in review, the hindsight of like breaking down games and stuff. I think Aggro's also done that as well. Do you have any plans like from a coaching perspective of like breaking down like okay, why did you pick ban here? Why would you do that? Kind of things like that to like show that end of things.
So the tricky thing with that is, and this is something that the team discussed with me before I joined, which is part of the reason that I was more under the radar this year than ever before. That was by choice, which is that when you share information like tier lists or your reasoning behind how you think, it gives away a lot more than just what you're providing, right? Like it gives insight into how you process a draft. It gives you insight into what gods you think are good, why you think they're good, which gives insight into like a team's play style. Like, you give so much information that is readily accessible and available to the people who are going to use it against you. Information is like a big part of how we've been successful as a team. We were able to look at players individually because they stream, because they have all their SPL games, because of anything they've ever said, and we can look at that and say, you know, because of this, this, and this, we know that they're going to do this, right? So it's hard for me to understand how I'm going to do content in that way. I don't think that that's helpful for my team, who's first and foremost like at the front of my mind, right? But I would like to do something where like I help other people, because the way I think about the game and the way everyone else on my team thinks about the game doesn't always align. So me giving information in terms of like what I think players should do to improve or stuff like that isn't inherently going to line up with what my team thinks is always the best. And that's sort of why we're successful, right? Because we have a back and forward conversation about everything, and we don't always agree, which is important because then we can discuss it and then come to a conclusion, and then that's sort of our plan going forward in those situations. But it's all of our opinions combined. It's not just one person's, which is probably really important to it too.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Like I've interviewed I think Aurora about 3 times now, all like at different points within like between the last a year and a half or so. But like getting that man to disclose any inkling, like just like a non-factor for anything related to Smite,
Yeah.
like he just will not give you an answer. He'll like everything is possible, nothing is possible. He's really good at not telling you anything. Well, but like still like talking to you. The man has a talent. And the dedication to that, as I really like, that's one of the things I've really always kind of liked about Aurora is how dedicated he is with that. But at the same time, like looking at like how you advance yourself, right? Like like as a content creator, like Smite needs like that content creation to flourish. I mean, we're seeing the best content creation year for Smite ever, I think, this year. I mean, like look at Weekend. Weekend's doing amazing with YouTube right now, all the content he's putting out. And like that's it's so it's what you're saying makes a lot of sense. We're like, oh, I can watch 50 hours of Weekend jungling and I know exactly how he thinks, what his rotations are, how he likes to build. Like I can see all of that. And it's really this double-edged sword where you're trying to make content, but then the more content you make, the more scouting other people can do. That's a really, really hard line to walk. I've never really thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Like,
It's tricky too because like obviously when you're making content, you're also not dedicating that time towards like and this is obviously no offense to Weekend. Weekend is, in my opinion, he's a very good player. I think his first 10 to 15 minutes in the jungle are some of the best in the game. I think he struggles in the mid to late game, having coached him for a while too. But when you dedicate so much time to creating content, the reality is like, where's your free time, right? You probably don't have that much. So you're probably also not dedicating that much time to like improving yourself inherently as a player. Like just because you're playing Smite doesn't mean you're learning or improving, especially if it's for the sake of creating content. You're just looking for like that sick play. But a lot of the times, like sick plays are like they're usually like not actually very good plays. They're just bad plays that went really, really, really well, and then like they look awesome.
mhm.
Um, so it when you put so much into content creation and you can't take it away from him because he's obviously like he's making a living off of it. It's like a very valid thing to do. Um, but if your priority is winning, it's very hard to convince someone that like it's a good idea. And I'm not sure what the correct way to do it is because the one thing Emilzy did too was he would review his games from his perspective and talk about what was happening with the team and all that. And but the thing that when you do that is you give everyone insight to what you did, why you did it, and what you might have done otherwise if something went wrong. Which is like it's I don't know, it just gives so much. So like for me, if I were to do something, maybe it would be coaching like newer players and giving them examples of where they can improve and like doing that. Maybe that's the way you do it. Um, I'm not really sure what the correct way to create content without like sacrificing your competitive edges. I think
And
it's
then
a
you've
very,
got
very hard thing to figure out.
yeah, but then you've got like Hi-Rez, like going into season 5, like the content clause, right? Where
Mhm.
people are like you're required to make at least some level of content, like uh, that. It's almost do or like it's just it's a really hard situation to navigate, like what we're saying, like and then like when you're forced by Hi-Rez to make content, but then you're like I don't want to do anything that takes it away, like how to it it's a really tricky situation that I don't think we really give a lot of thought to. And it it makes a lot of sense now, like why a lot of like the top players or your favorite like players aren't necessarily, the ones doing a lot of content and streaming. You think about it a lot. It's like, oh, this guy should stream a lot more. It's like, well, like PBM used to stream a lot more. And then
Mhm.
I feel like as soon as he stopped streaming more, he started winning a lot more too. Like the focus, there's definitely, you see direct correlations. I mean, the only people that really have adopted content all the time and have still been able to like keep that super high competitive, I mean, Rival, like everybody on Rival is streaming, making content, and doing that every day and every week. And then they're still making, world's finals. So there's got to be
Yeah.
a way at some point you're just too nuts to be scouted against, right? Like, what are you gonna do against Deathwalker? Deathwalker's just gonna do stuff at you back, right? He's gonna be able to adapt. So it's uh it's a fine line to walk, and I don't envy you guys because you just got to find a way, especially as a coach, because you're not making a whole lot from the coaching gig, as you don't have the guaranteed income like the players do, and
Mhm.
then you got to find a way to subsist on that and something else. So I'm really interested to see. I'm definitely interested in following and seeing what you do for content, because I feel like it's gonna it's going to be indicative of like what a lot of other people are going to do, especially with season 6 changes coming down. I guess that's a good segue to talk about
Mhm.
like all of the season 6 changes with moving. You as a coach, what are your thoughts about maybe having to move down to Atlanta?
Uh, my opinion is probably not a popular one, and I think it's important to take into consideration, right? I'm 27 years old, newly single. I literally my only tie to where I am is that I have dogs and my family's here. And the reality is I can move back. And by moving, I'm going to be saving money through the salary that I get through Splice. You know, God bless them; they are incredible org. Um, and I have no costs for going. I pay for food and I pay for recreation. So for me, it's actually a no-brainer, but in a different direction than everyone else, right? I personally think if you live in North America and you do not have obligations to school, um, and not taking the opportunity, I do think that it's a little hard for me to get behind that. I do think that there's an argument for relationships. I have seen an argument saying that you can't put this on your resume. I don't think that I agree with that because playing professional sports, esports, is something that you as an individual means you are the top point like 1% of what you do, right? So that shows that you have talent and commitment to something. And if you can write it up in a fancy way that says to your employer that you are dedicated to your work and you are the best of the best at what you provide, then that, I mean, at the end of the day, like, yeah, I think you can use that on your resume. Are you going to be able to say that you have like 5 years experience in like your field? No, probably not. But I don't know. I don't think that it's useless on a resume.
I would agree. Like the top, I'm not gonna lie, the top thing on my resume right now is like extracurricular. Established my college Smite team, got third place in inaugural like NACE. Like that is like the top thing on my resume right now, and like
right,
anything
like,
can be added there that
yeah.
shows and demonstrates like certain qualities, leadership, things like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a talking point for your interview, right? It makes you stand out. Like they're gonna be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what do you mean you play video games and you got paid for it? Like that is a conversation. It makes you interesting and it makes you stand out. Like that's my opinion on it. I can see the flip side, which is like if you are trying to get a job as like an accountant, you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, I played video games and it was sick. Like, I get it. But I do think that there is room to spend a year, go be with the people that you spend all your time with, and like grow as a person. And like I don't know, I would not ever say to ditch college. I do think that if you are in college and you are sure of where you want to go on your career path, that you should commit to school. But I don't see the harm if like you just finished school, like you have a job, you know, you're getting paid with what's the minimum, 30,000, 35,000, very minimum. I don't think any of the teams probably going into next year are going to be making the minimum, probably more than that usually. And you save that money for the whole year. I don't know. I think for European teams, this deal is garbage, if we're being blunt about it. There must be some reason that we don't know about that they can't set up a studio. There's not the infrastructure, there's not the funding, whatever it is, that there can't be an EU hub. If I were to make an improvement on the system for next year, my argument would be that the priority should be to get an EU hub set up. Because I think the complaints of the EU scene going in a serious downward spiral as a result of this is a very, very valid concern. Historically, Hi-Rez has shown that if you are from a region that is not NA or EU, that you are probably not a priority. I don't think it's unfair to say that. I also don't think that Hi-Rez has inherently been unfair in doing that, in so far as that the competition from those regions has not been impressive. The argument could be that they haven't had the opportunity to show themselves and to get that practice. But I don't know, other games around the world are able to manage. I don't know. I don't know what the system is, but I think for EU players specifically, this is not the way to do it. I also understand that because this planning is so far along that it's not going to change, that we're going to have to deal with it. But I do think going into, if there's another year of Smite esports, that should be taken into consideration and changed. That would be my comment on that for sure.
Okay. One thing I'm just thinking about now is, you know, going back to like coaches aren't getting the minimum salary, right? That's the thing right now, though. The only guaranteed salaries for the 5 players, right? Well, when it comes down to this next year, season 6, and you know, we're having these team houses down there, are coaches being included in that, or coaches like how does that work? Are coaches going to be expected to move down with their players and their team?
No.
And then Okay.
So coaches are not included. So basically, if all 5 players, I think this is public info, whatever. If all 5 players moved, you got extra money for moving. That did not include your coach. I am probably the only NA-based coach that can easily move and uproot their lives. So it probably only applies to me to be able to move and go there. Splice has been very supportive of us. They're, figuring out obviously housing because that's all the orgs have to do, and I'll have a place to stay and I'll be provided for. So you're not included by Hi-Rez through necessity, but I suspect that most of the orgs are going to make an effort to have you included.
Okay. I really like to hear that because that was, I think, one of the underrated talking points too. Because, like we said, like coaches have become such a big deal for Smite, and then now we're trying to uproot everybody and put them all, in these houses together, and then it's like, well, wait a second, yeah, you've got this, guaranteed salary for your players, but then if you're including coaches, some of the numbers I've heard for coaches were, I think at the high end, we're making like 1/3 of the minimum salary is what at one point what I was hearing. And so I think it was about what 10 grand or something like that. And then that was even, at the high end. So
Mm-hmm.
that's if you have the housing already taken care of, 10 grand, like that's, if you can follow your dream right for a year, like that's not awful. You can make that work for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, as an aside, I obviously won't disclose the number I'm getting, but moving in next year, I would be getting more than that. And it is like, I will save a comfortable sum of money. I'll be one world. So I'm lucky enough to have a team and an org that's also willing to, chip in some of that towards me as well. Like I've got my foot in the door in terms of like the right place to be, I feel like.
Mhm.
So it's also easier for me to commit to this move knowing that if I keep pushing forward with this and it keeps going well, like maybe in 2 or 3 years, I'm not a Smite coach. I'm involved in esports in some other meaningful way that's a career, right?
Mhm.
Uh, like this is like a way for me to forward myself into doing something that I don't hate for the rest of my life. Is basically how I look
Yeah,
at
and
it.
I don't think you could have been a part of a better org to be a part of that. I love Splice. They're a local company for me, and so I've been
Yeah.
following them forever. Marty is a fantastic guy. The things that he's been doing, trying to get just trying to grow esports everywhere he can. Like the guy is really very much involved in every scene for esports, and so I don't think there's a really better org in NA right now where you can be a
Yeah.
part of to like really try to get your foot in the door somewhere. Uh, I don't know. Let's see. What else can I ask you here? Let's kind of dive into I've kind of heard some rumblings behind the scenes of like some potential rosters we'll be seeing. Um, do you think that the NAEU mingling is going to be uh as significant as it's being hyped up, or do you think it's going to be more ho hum than what we're being hyped up to believe?
So what we're and everyone else on our team calls that is it's like the club, right? Everyone talks to
Mhm.
everyone. Everyone on Splice talks to almost no one. I'm the only person that has like connections to anyone at all, but my connections are to people on Trifecta. The only confirmation I have really is that it seems like Trifecta is the same, and that is the extent of what I know. If I had to take a guess, I think that there will be a lot of mixing because there are a lot of EU players that are unsure, and there are a couple of them that are sure that they want to move, right? So, what is going to happen, I think, is that those EU players are going to actively seek out NA teams that have holes to fill on their roster, and that's where you're going to see the roster sort of intermingling between NA and EU. I don't think there's going to be much more of it other than the players that have already stated they want to go. I think that those players are going to find homes on NA teams. That's my personal opinion. I don't know. I don't have any concrete evidence or anything to support that, but that makes the most
Right.
sense to me because they want to be locked in and ready to go as soon as possible, I think.
All right. I remembered something I did want to ask you. Is one of the takes that I've seen from I think it was from someone at Hi-Rez, but they were saying like they don't buy into the whole NAE rivalry thing. that it's like a forced narrative that like don't like it doesn't add anything. I don't believe that. I don't think that that's true. I think the NAE rivalry is something that's always been a big thing. Rivalries between divisions have always been a huge thing. Rivalries are great. NAEU, you've got, the AFC versus the NFC, like all of these things like help drive the game, and like those rivalries are really big. Do you think losing the NAEU rivalry is going to be a bad thing, or do you kind of side on the other side where it's like, it doesn't really matter anyway?
Tricky, right? I don't think that because these teams don't live in EU that they're not European teams. I think that's a very strange misconception. I do think that rivalry is important insofar as it exists in every game. I think every time that you see Region A versus Region B in any esport ever, there are people spamming crazy garbage in Twitch chat about how one nation's garbage and the other one's sick. I think people love it. I don't know that it has to go away specifically because the teams are moving to NA, because like, let's say all of Energy moves to NA. They are not suddenly North American Energy. They are still European Energy. They are just boot camping, right? They're basically just boot camping for a year. I don't think that that's like, it's like saying when league teams, let's say North American league teams go to Korea to boot camp for like 3 months. They're not suddenly Korean teams. They're North American teams that went to Korea to get better. I feel like that is a very forced mentality on people to say, oh, we don't have European teams because they don't live in Europe anymore. I think that's silly.
All right, that's a good answer. I like that.
But,
I think it'll be interesting to see how much of the mingling, like if I'm really interested to see, like if I were going to make an aggressive prediction, like that we don't see any team that is 100% one region. That would be insane to me, and I think that might be possible, but it's also one of those things where it's like that's a really aggressive side. I think there might be a couple teams that could, like, no, we're like, you got like I could see Splice sticking together. I could also see Splice, maybe one, maybe two positions really trying to be aggressive to like improve and everything, but like at the end of the day, world champs, what changes can we really make? We're pretty happy where we are, right? So kind of some stuff like Rival as well. I don't see if all of Rival moves over, how do you break up Rival? Those type of questions. But I'm really excited to see where it kind of takes us. I guess next up, you specifically, your transition from being a player to a coach. Your playing days were a little bit before my time in Smite. I think I got into Smite season 3 about midway. So I don't know if you were still playing at that time.
No, I played from like, seriously anyway, from like maybe the middle of 2013 up until the beginning of season 3. I played SPL for the fall split, and back then the fall split was super long. I think it was like to October, maybe. That's when I played, and I don't know. That was hard. Playing was hard. That's how I ended up being a coach. Playing was not for me. I am not I'm not naturally competitive, I guess. My experience with sports was I was a gymnast, right? So you weren't competing against other people, I guess, but your main competition was like with yourself, right? You were just trying to improve your routine, look really good, and be satisfied with where you were. And that's sort of like that's the mentality I've had with everything else in my life, really. So if I like started not feeling good about like scrims or something, like that stuck with me, right? I wasn't suddenly like, oh, I really want to win. I was like, I really don't feel good doing this. So like coaching became like a more natural position for me because I could see when people were struggling and I could help them, because I'm better at dealing with people when I'm more separated from the situation than I am when I'm involved, I think. And that started to become my role on the team, right? aside from like helping with drafts and helping with like planning, I'm also like a mediator and like basically player management, really. So that job fits me a lot better, I think, than I did as a player. I think I was actually pretty good, but my mentality stopped me from improving. And that kind of sounds like a bullshit cop out now. I think if I was coaching myself, I'd be really mad at myself for saying that. But that's how I feel about it, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Coaching
It
definitely
doesn't
more
sound like
fulfilling
it
than
was
playing
like
it.
it doesn't sound like it was a hard transition. Like you have some people who are like they're in the middle of a game and then like I can't do it anymore. And it's like the deconstruction of who they are, right? It's like a huge blow to them. But it sounds like
Yeah.
you were just like, nah, this is I'm not the player's not for me. I'm gonna transition, and then it was pretty smooth for you.
Well, you know what it was, right? Is I spent so much time trying to get into the SPL, right? Like getting into the SPL was like my end game. So once I got there, it was like, what now? Right? Like I just wanted to be here. And then I was on a team of people that were like trying super, super hard to win. Not that I wasn't trying, but like the way that they were acting because they were trying to win just like did not I don't vibe in that sort of like area, I guess, because like they were getting like super mad and like I would take it personally at some point. Like I was willing to like give way to some stuff, but like when it became like berating people because you want to win so bad, like that didn't work for me at all. So yeah. So my
I get
goal
that.
basically became I was like, I'm gonna see if I can get on another team. And then I found out that almost all teams are like that are gonna be good. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll see what's up with like coaching so I can still be involved because I mean I put a lot of time into this, so it would feel like shit if I didn't get anything out of it. And then yeah, it definitely felt more fulfilling for me. And I think it was easier for me to get my foot in the door because I had played professionally, so people took my opinion more seriously. For a really long time, coaches were like a joke. And anytime they'd have input, you'd be like, haha, that's stupid. And then you would ignore them and you do whatever you want. So yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge right now that like I think that's like Baskin's kind of notorious for that. Where like if you haven't reached like X level, Baskin doesn't like he's not taking your opinion seriously, right? From like a coaching that's like that, from what I've heard, like that was like the reason why like there was never a coach for like SSG for a long time. It was just like they couldn't get Baskin to agree to it on anybody. And he was like kind of a difficult on that side. And that makes sense. Like, why would you listen to somebody who isn't as good as you? But on the other hand,
Yeah.
it's like, well, offering something else, like another side of it or something like that. Like, I'm not mechanically as gifted as you are, but like I can analyze the game just as well, you know? So
Yeah, it might have also been too that like for Baskin, I mean, I obviously I have no idea about him personally or if what you've said is true. I could see it being true for sure. But for him, probably it wasn't so much that like he needs somebody that tells him, you know, what's right or what's wrong. He just needs like there needs to be help creating a connection between what he wants to do and what other players want to do, and like coming to a middle ground. Because it's always felt like whatever team Baskin's on, I do think United is the least prevalent example of this. But whatever team Baskin's on, it's Baskin's team, and everyone's going to cater to what he wants to do on the map. And I think that United was probably the least prevalent example of that, where he wasn't always playing carries, he wasn't always carrying the game, wasn't always getting allocated all the resources. So I think that is evidence that he's probably made improvements and grown since he was on SSG. But that could also be wrong. That's just sort of an observation that I would make based on how things have changed for him. But yeah, a lot of yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like just a basket alone, like the side tangent there, just like it felt like a lot of the time it was like everything on the map flows through Baskin. With his
Yeah.
permission, he doles out XP to people. Like, no, that one's mine. That was mine. I was like, all right, you can have that one. This one's mine. And like, once he moved to like United, it was like it was much more. I don't know. He felt like he still kind of stuck out a little bit at times, but he fit more. Like the puzzle wasn't as like broken up with United. And like, I was one of the few people who was like, this trade between SSG and United for Vin and Baskin, in like the short term, it probably favors United, but long term, I could see it favoring SSG, just like the changes to the team, Vin being I don't know, a more round player, like just being able to do more. It's like the Swiss Army, whatever the team needs for that game. I feel like Vin slides into that role, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky conversation too. I think that SSG actually really suffered because realistically, what it was, right, is they accepted what I think has traditionally been called like the Baskin tax, right? Where like you bring Baskin in and he blows the game out for you, and as payment for that, you have to sacrifice what apparently seems to be like your confidence to play the game, because he's going to take everything and he's going to do everything for you, and you're going to believe that you have to have him on your team to win. So when you take Baskin away, he's like a drug, right? Like suddenly you're going through withdrawal. You're not sure you can do anything anymore. I think you saw examples of that through SSG where like they were trying really hard to like do stuff for themselves and it would backfire. They'd be too aggressive. And then the next week they'd come back and they'd be like too scared to be proactive. And then they would sort of sit on their hands with their lead and eventually it would get taken out from under them. I think they had a really hard time finding their identity of what they wanted to do as a team. I think that's a really rough spot to put Ben in because he can fit any role that you want on that team, right? But the problem is if you keep changing what you want his role to be, then he's never going to find his fit for what works for that team. I feel like that's what happened. I'm not inherently sure, but it did feel like they never found their footing. I don't know. I don't know how much that changes, right? Because I don't know. It feels like SSG just has a block against European teams in general. I don't know who on that team would inherently be the cause of that. But it seems like every time they're going up against a European team, maybe they're just joking on social media or stuff, but maybe there is a mental block there where like, if we're against a European team, we're going to have a really, really hard game. And the reality is like European teams they're just teams. They play the same game you do. And I think blowing it out of proportion makes it like really hard for you to confront that. I think that's what happens for that team.
There's a lot of we could like write a thesis on like the rise and fall and problems of SSG and that team over the last few years, man. Like there's so many things that go right and wrong and so many possibilities where the like the origin of it all is. But it's definitely a team that like I'm really interested to see what that team does moving forward because they all want to win. And then being able to change the roster around and everything with the region locks, like will they? And then like SSG as an org, because like when we went to this franchising mode for Smite and Splice came in, I was like, Splice is gonna make aggressive changes to rosters. Like they're gonna try to make changes and figure out what would fit. And then like before the season started, they went through like 2 junglers. It was like went through Yuji and then like the settle like I think and then you guys got Sino. It was like, all right. So that was I saw that coming, right? Splice is gonna be aggressive and make changes to put together the best roster. But I don't know that SSG is gonna do that the same. Like they're very committed to like we do orgs our own way. We're really chill. We're all about the homegrown, the grassroots, and Jeff and Barra, those teams are like the epitome of that, right? Like there's nobody else really in NA that has that same feel. So like I've kind of in back rooms and really hushed tones been like, what if it's time to split up Jeff and Barra? And everyone just goes, you can't do that. I'm like, but what if it's time? Like do you think it's time to have that conversation yet? I'm gonna probe your mind a little bit.
So before we do that, I will talk on Splice's behalf because they're not here to defend themselves. They were actually, I will have you know, they were furious when we chose to replace UG. They actually wanted to commit to the roster that we had put forth because they are very committed to having all, like they want, like it's like a family, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we had said, oh, let's get this player, he's really good. And then like a week before the split started, we were like, actually not going to work. We need somebody else. And yeah, you learn
And
a
that's good.
lot
That's good
about.
information. I
Yeah,
like that. Like there's a lot of times where like the perception on the outside will match up, but then like you actually like find on the inside, like, oh no, it's something completely different. Like I always love like learning the little like the stuff that goes on
yeah.
behind the scenes like that.
Splice is very committed to investing in their players and building them up. So they do want the best roster possible, but they want that to be brought to them at the beginning. They do not want to fuck around with contracts a ton. I am actually after working with them for the year, I really respect their work ethic. Like when we had the conversation about getting Moswall in place of Best, that was like that was a long conversation. That was a lot of work. Um, so they really try to hold on to the people they put money into and worked with. They're really committed to the people they bring in, and they're really good people. As an aside, going back to your question, I don't think whether or not Vera and Jeff should stay together is really up to whether or not it's good anymore. They seem like they're tied together, don't they? That's what I think. I think even if it was in their best interest to split apart, whether it is or not, I can't say. I still think that they're a very competent dual lane. I do think that if there is an opportunity for them to succeed, it will be going into this next season because it will be back on Farah's sort of hands to be the person that steps up along with like Andy to really show the team like what they're supposed to be doing. So if changes happen on the map where dual lane suddenly becomes like meaningful, but not in the way it was this split where like you blow out the dual lane because you can make the other dual lane so weak they can't play the game, but instead you put the dual lane up on props and you make them strong, and then Vera carries the game because he's critting everyone. Like I think that's a world where Vera and Jeff start to look really good again. I think that in their defense, Vera, he might not have had his best season, but it was also probably the worst season to be in dual lane. So if there is an opportunity for him to succeed, I think he will take it, and I think he will do well. I think Jeff historically is very good at setting up his team. I feel like when I was watching their games, when Baskin was there, I felt like he very often, if you were watching him, he would be like, here's the dual lane, here's the mid lane, here's the jungle, and this is where Jeff sits, and he takes no farm, and he does nothing until his team asks him to go die for him. Like, I felt like that Jeff got stuck there. And I feel like if Jeff is allowed to go play the game again, and feels confident in what he's doing, then I think that dual lane's good. I do. I think they are really seasoned players and they know what they're doing. I hope that they aren't like at this point playing the game because it's what they do. I hope they're doing it because it's what they want to do. And I think that's going to be the big important part in terms of like their mentality. Are they playing the game because it's what they know, or is it because it's what they still want to do? If it's what they still want to do, they'll be successful. If it's because this is like what they've done for the past 4 years, then they're probably going to keep declining. I think that's probably how it goes.
That's a solid answer. Solid. I like it. I appreciate it. This year was not the easiest year for you guys. You guys started off really rocky, really rough, and then you had the beach house. You had weekend at Bernie's, and then you came out guns a-blazing. Going into the beach house, like first off, like how was morale right before that versus like right after?
So I think right before it wasn't. It was after the split ended, after our last game. That's when it was super bad. That's when I'm getting DMs from every individual player saying this team is a disaster. Something has to change. And I'm like, because at this point, like it's basically my job to know what needs to change and how to do it. So when I looked at it objectively, I was like, I have like what was it at that point? There was 4 people on that team that had been to Worlds. 3 of them had been to semis, and Sino was like a phenomenal rookie. So I looked at that and I said, okay, this is not a last place team, regardless of what the standings say. There's no particular reason that I can come up with at this point where I will look at anyone that's in SML and say that that is a very clear upgrade. they might be equivalent, but I don't think that making that change is going to improve anything because, frankly, our team environment is very, very hard to be a part of. So it's better to keep the people who know what it's like already and figure out what to do. So at that point, I went to Splice and I was like, "Hey, is there anything we can do where we could live together for a long period of time?" And they were like what, like 2 or 3 weeks? I was like, "No, like 2 months." And they were like, "No, we do not have the space for that right now. We could give you space for like 3 weeks, but we have other teams that we have to take care of." And I was like, "Okay, that's reasonable. Smite is not exactly the biggest game that you are working with right now, and to ask you to do that while you're in the middle of figuring out all this other stuff that you're doing with infrastructure and stuff like that, that's not a reasonable ask." So I was like, "Okay, that's kind of fucked. What do I do?" And then, in my genius mind, I was like, "Hey, I have a beach house and it is not summer. So maybe I should ask my parents. They will probably say no, but if they say yes, it's sick." So I went over to my dad and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life if I don't do this. What do you think?" No pressure, Dad. Um, and he was like, "I'll think about it." And historically, that means he's going to wait until the last minute and tell me no. So I didn't have my hopes very high. And then eventually he said yes. And when he said yes, we had, I think, like 2.5 weeks to get everything sort of going.
Mhm.
So I got in contact with Novos, God bless him. He's our general manager of the whole thing. And he was like, "Oh shit, okay, let's do this." He got our flights figured out to go to Rochester. We did our media stuff with them, and I shit you not, we were all sitting there laughing. We're like a last place team, and they're doing all this shit for us. This feels real good. And then, yeah, we got to the beach house, and the internet was good, which was the biggest concern of all. It was stable. We got everyone set up, got everyone in their room, and then by the end of it, I think that we felt pretty confident that we were going to make the Summerland. We didn't, but we thought that we would. And everyone was closer and feeling really good about our chances going into fall. So overall, yeah, it was definitely a life-changing experience for me. I won't speak on the behalf of the rest of them, but I mean, I don't know. It was sort of like being in college again for me. And I guess because most of them don't live on campus, it was like the first time for them. So yeah, it was crazy. It was really a good time. It really was.
What what was your would you have a favorite moment from that beach house trip that hasn't been like talked about or like put out on social or anything like that? You got any favorite memory you want to like just like or funny moment or something you want to highlight?
So funny moment was, I shit you not, in the first 30 seconds that we're at the house. I going upstairs to show Aurora where him and Sino are gonna stay, and he just goes, "There's a chunker on this bed," and he jumps onto the bed and he cracked the frame. And I was like, "Dude, are you kidding me? Like, we just got here." Like, so that was hilarious. Aside from that, though, I think that the best memory I have is me and Aurora, because most of them didn't want to leave the house that often. Sino would leave sometimes, Best would leave sometimes, but Cyclone and Divios were hard to get out of the house. But like, a few nights after scrims, me and Aurora would literally just go out on the beach and we would just go talk about scrims and figure shit out. Like, we would just talk about scrims, talk about life, talk about where we thought things were going, what we thought was going to happen with worlds, that kind of stuff. I mean, he doesn't like to be that forward thinking, but he would say at least that I think we have a chance at worlds and stuff. We have a chance at land. I don't know. It was like a pretty good bonding experience for me, I think. So I don't know. That would be my top one, I think.
I think that chemistry really, at least for me, because having like met you guys in Rochester, talking to you guys, you and Aurora especially had some really good symmetry. The way you guys played off each other, the way you guys would like one would start talking and like start explaining something, and the other one would kind of jump in or like further extrapolate on you guys. Like that. That's what really sold me on Splice as a whole. Like I had been kind of toying with it because like there's a lot of similarities between the end of season 5 and the end of season 3, kind of a stagnant, stale meta, people doing the same thing a lot of the same way. And then you got, Eager, you got Divios and Aurora kind of being, could create something crazy if they can put lightning in a bottle again. I really like that team can do something real special. And like I kept saying, like if Splice is allowed to play Splice Smite at Worlds, they could be really dangerous. And then having sat down and talked to you guys, like, no, like Splice is gonna do it. Splice is gonna they're gonna make a run. And it's just I don't think I mean, like that's obviously been the narrative. The Beach House weekend is really what turned everything around, but like I think it's still understated how much that impact have. Would you agree, or would you say it's been kind of overstated even at this point?
I do think that it has been talked about more than I would have expected it to be. I don't think that you can effectively put into words what it did though, because like it just changed how everyone felt about the team, right? Like we went into that house and we were like, man, I hope this does something. So like, wow, this like we at least like we had like a good idea of what we wanted to do, right? By the end of it. Like I don't know, it helped establish like how we were feeling about the game, what we wanted to do, how we wanted to play. And that was like our biggest like loss, right? Because we were still trying to learn the new map and how everything was different in season 5. And it just gave us time to talk about it and iron it out and get things figured out. Because if you think about like realistically, like seasons like 1 to 4, Smite like changed, right? But it was generally speaking like the same game. You added like a new objective in Portal Demon or Fire Elemental or something like that, but like fundamentally the game didn't change very much. But in season 5, the game was incredibly different. So it was almost like, if this is like a really broad and almost incorrect statement, but like you have like seasons like 1 through 4 are kind of like the beginning of Smite, and then season 5 onwards like new Smite, right? Like Smite 2. So we were learning Smite 2. And that like I think having the extra time to sit there and talk about it made it so we didn't have to go through like Fat Chunks Assemble from season 1, right? And COD Gaming from season 2. We didn't have to go through those phases. We skipped those and went right to Eager from season 3. I think that was the biggest benefit to it all.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see what you're saying. Like the breakdown, like makes a lot of sense when you put it in those words.
Hi, Bailey.
So I guess we got to talk about Worlds at this point. Did you feel like you were at an advantage or a disadvantage not being at placements? So being able to watch all the games obviously that happened at placements, advantage, right? But then not being able to play at LAN and like participate in that meta and everything, was that at all a disadvantage for you guys, or was it neutral? How did that impact you guys going into Worlds?
Probably an advantage, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you think about season 3 Eager, right, their biggest disadvantage going into Worlds was that they didn't get to keep their hog strategy invade to themselves, right? If they had that going to Worlds, who would have beat them? No one. Literally, no one would have stood a single chance. So we got to hold on to that. We got to see what people were doing. As an aside, what we learned was one, that Fenrir was apparently sick. Aurora not originally sold on that. We had to like chill for like a week until we were like, yeah, let's try it. And then we got a wheel.
It's hard for me to believe that, like, out of anybody, Aurora was like, Fenrir support.
I mean, he was like, it's fine, right? But he didn't like RDO was the sauce, right? And he was like, it doesn't amount to anything like that. But I mean, we played it and it was good. I still am not sold that it was as good as it was prioritized. But the difference between NA and EU significantly is that NA is much more willing to buy Magi's, which is why Fenrir would not be as good to us normally. And then the other pick. Sorry, I thought somebody came into my house and it was my dog shooting at a squeaky toy. The other one that we got was the Wheelix from Rival, which ended up being a huge thing for us. Yeah, we started practicing a Wheelix and Geb 2 days before we flew out to LAN, which ended up being like Geb especially ended up being a big deal. And the other reason we practiced Geb was because Divios got really mad about how scrims were going, and he said, "I'm just gonna pick this because you guys said," and then we were like, "Geb's not bad." and then we played.
So
Geb.
you won Worlds because baby rage.
Well, that strategy about with us putting 3 people in duo was also from us getting mad. Because what would happen is, you can thank Trifecta for this. We would scrim Trifecta, and dumbass Neil and Zap would run up to our tower line in duo and just stand there. And Cyclone was like, "I'm sick of this," because Cyclone's usually playing on like 120 ping. He can't hit every auto. He's like, "This is fucked up. Divios, come over here." And that's how that strat was born too. I don't know.
Yeah. I love it. I love just like the between baby rage and then Cyclone just being done with it. Like that was your World's winning strategy. That's how you stumbled upon the secret sauce.
Exactly. I mean, that's
why so
I
crazy. Like there's so much to Smite that like doesn't get explored. Like, right? Because like there's so much potential. Like what could be done if like let's just go troll around, right? And then it's like, oh wait, Loki, Kabrak, and duo lane. Let's go.
Yeah, that was one of those things that we were gonna do as well. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm lucky that I have a team that's like, they're like, "This is really stupid, and we don't know how to beat it, so we're just gonna try this," and they just throw shit at the wall until it sticks. There was one point where we had a strategy with Izanami. I think we dumped this really quick, but it was like, we sent Izanami alone to go proxy in front of their Phoenix in dual lane while we 3-man invade speed while Boswell does our own speed, and then Izanami kills herself and gets back to our side of the map instantly. And then it worked a couple times, but then people started putting people in the jungle to wait for Cyclone to kill him. So we gave up on that because it would only work once, and we weren't sure it was going to work as well as it did the one time it did against the team that it did. But it was something that it was stuff like that. We would just try random stuff. We were like, whatever. I don't know. We got nothing to do today. We might as well just give it a go. And
how do you balance like so like I feel like, so you look at a team like SSG, right? You look at like any of the Barra Jeff teams. It's like, this is traditional Smite, right? This is the meta.
Right.
This is how we play. We play fundamentals, and then you've got like you guys running like 3-man duo lane like for 5 minutes because it like was botched, but you're like, no, we're sticking to it. Like, how do you balance like like playing the fundamentals, but then always like, all right, well, let's try this. Like, how does like the let's try this and like the evolution of that, like just really being willing and able to just throw whatever at the wall to see if it sticks?
So balancing it isn't, I mean, at the end of the day, because I've coached obviously a bunch of teams at this point, and I've tried being strict and I've tried being not at all strict. So the balance has become, okay, let's try it, but make sure you do a good job, because if it's bad, we're not going to do it again because we only have a certain amount of practice time. So I make sure that they're on board and they put a lot of thought into what they want to do. And I make them explain to me why they think it's good and why it's going to work. And I make them also accept that there's problems with it and what we're going to do about those problems. And then we try to put it into practice. If something goes horribly wrong that is like random, we'll give it another go. But if it just goes bad because it's bad, then we give up on it, or we talk about it at length and try to come up with a reason for why we would do it, when we would do it, and how we should do it instead. There's a lot of like flowcharty stuff that we do to figure out if we want to do it and how it's good. But yeah, it's making sure that everyone has a reason for what they're doing. That's been my big coaching go-to, which is, why are we doing it? And if they can give me a good reason, it doesn't even have to be that good, honestly. Because our strat at Worlds was not like, there was not a phenomenally good reason. If you looked at the graphs, we were never ahead, but we were ahead where we wanted to be ahead, which is the important part. And that was enough for me. As long as they were happy with what they were doing, that was all I really cared about. Because if they're happy, then like, we literally, yeah.
You don't have to answer this, because I realize like it's kind of a little. Well, I guess like we're going into season 6, right? So like, what's like everything's about.
Yeah, exactly. I will answer just about everything you want, because At this point,
what was the craziest off the wall idea strategy you either tried and tabled or tried and were like, there's no way this works again?
Well, in addition to doing our strat, we also had a strat where we were simultaneously invading speed. So what would happen is we would have Sino and Moswall go run at their jungler and mid if their jungler was shitty level 1. And then what we would do is we would either attack him and kill him, which happened a lot, or we would take their speed, and then what would happen is we would, because the only thing we cared about really was that dual lane didn't get their buffs themselves. That was the ultimate transformation of our strategy. It was, we do not care who takes these buffs. All we care about is that their dual lane does not get their purple or their red. Their mid laner and jungler can get their red, but as long as they do not get either of the buffs, we are happy. So we were like, okay, we invaded their speed, and then Sino was like, haha, you don't have pressure. I'm gonna walk between your towers and go to your red. And then we just literally lived in their jungle all together. And then Sino came over and ganked dual lane after we had taken their buffs, and they were still level 1. And then we had a level 3 dual lane, level 3 jungle, level 3 mid. They had a level 1 jungle, level 1 dual lane. And then we never used that because we realized that other teams would probably have their solo laner over by speed buff or close enough to react to that, and then we would die. But we wanted to do it. that was the last thing in the tank, and people started copying us consistently.
Okay. I think you guys got pretty lucky that nobody, like, I don't know why, like, nobody really, except for, I mean, Rival was like, oh hell no, we're sending Deathwalker, we're sending the troops back right at you to try to counteract it, right? And then nobody else really.
The thing about what Rival did, right, was the big mistake we made in game 1 was we were like, man, it would really suck if Deathwalker picked Erlang and ran at our speed buff like what he did in the last set. Why don't we just take Erlang? And then while we were talking about after we had taken Erlang, we were like, hey, we could probably invade this game. And that was like the biggest error in our line of thinking, was because obviously if they invaded with Erlang, they were going to have it in their head that we would think about doing that too. Had we not invaded with Erlang and they had 4 people in mid, that would have been the biggest waste of their time ever. We had already made Alma get her dash, like, and they were 4-manning on their speed side. Like, that would have been a huge waste of time. We would have still gotten their buffs. Like, it was super chill and it was whatever. The biggest deal was that we tried to fight them and then we died, and then we also didn't get their buffs. Like, that was the reason that went so bad. And that was all because we picked Erlang, and our mentality was something that they could anticipate and react to. But the rest of what they did was like, I think the only thing that was like, oh wow, that is really garbage, I don't want to see that anymore, was the Ares. And the reason we didn't want to see the Ares is because it was a flex pick for if we picked Terra, they put it in the solo, otherwise they'd put it on Deathwalker, or not Deathwalker, Collis, and he would kill us because we didn't have a lot of CC immune alt center comps. So we took that away, and then it was kind of easy come, easy go with the rest of that.
I feel like the turnabout would have been fair play, especially with Aurora, right? Like Aurora Ares used to be the hotness for like his aggressive support play style, right? So I was kind of interested to see you guys not like opted for yourselves.
Well, the thing about Ares, right, is like, well, one, Rival heavily prioritized Raijin. Raijin particularly good at killing tanks. Ares particularly a tank you do not want to die quickly. So for Aurora to pick Ares, the situation has to look very good. And if the situation is looking good for us, it probably already looks good for Rival, and they will probably pick it earlier than we would, because of the way our characters looked in terms of CC immunity and stuff like that, and the way we were playing so aggro. So it made more sense to take it off the board than worry about whether or not we wanted to draft it. And that's the other thing to think about too in drafts, is like, and this is what happened to Rival a little bit. And I think it was probably more the pressure of being in the finals again and worrying about it than anything else. But they started drafting like they were us a little bit. And once you start drafting to take away from the other team, you start playing like their game, right? Like, you're playing our game in the draft by being forced to pick the stuff that we like because we know how to play against it too. So I don't know. You got to play your own game. You can't get like swayed because something's super sick. If you can't stick to your game plan, then you're probably not going to win.
That's fair. I think a lot of that confidence issue, right? Like, Rival definitely did kind of switch up what they were picking to kind of take things away from you, to kind of secure their
Mhm.
like stuff and try to force you off. But like, I don't know. At the end of the day, like, I know AJ has beaten himself up, and a lot of people have thrown some shade at him for like the
Yeah,
last
all those
game in
people are stupid.
particular. Yeah.
Yeah, all those people are incredibly stupid. Jokes aside, Alpha Jackal's nuts. Like, in his defense, like I do think that he, for lack of better term, he galaxy brained himself because when we went into the finals, right? For
Galaxy.
we had like 3 crazy advantages, right?
Uh-huh.
One, they definitely thought we were married to our strategy of having 3 in dual lane. We did that because it felt good. We didn't really care to do it every game if we didn't want to. We weren't married to it. So we made an adjustment of that when it didn't seem like it was going to be the big play every game, but we still did it sometimes. So it made it less predictable. 2, no one thought Moswell had a god pool, which is great for us because he had a huge god pool. And I think that they were looking to exploit that, and that was not the place to go. And 3, nobody thought that Sino would play Mercury because we weren't prioritizing it ever. But Sino was actually sick at Mercury. So like 3 really big advantages that like they could not have known based on the rest of the tournament. And the last time we had played Merc was against United during the split. So that had been over a month and a half ago. So there was like no evidence to say that we would play it again. So Alpha Jackal had a lot of work to do without much information at all. I really don't, because I mean, if you get
I think
if you
you
give
put it
us
perfectly
Freya,
that he galaxy brained himself. That's like, I don't think you can say
yeah,
any better than that. Like, it makes a lot of sense.
because he looked at Freya and he's like, well, what if Moswell plays that? And it's like, yeah, what if Moswell plays that? And then you take Opwash and something else, and we take Sheepawonke or something. Because they don't want us to have Ardio, they don't want us to have Sheepawonke, and they don't want us to have Opwash. So then they had a choice to make. You could definitely make an argument now that it's over that it was the wrong choice. But I mean,
he had to make a choice. Like
exactly. And you're on the clock,
picks
you
and
don't
bans are a
have
very stressful environment. Like, that is like, until you're there, like in a competitive setting, like, bank time is not very long. And like, if you're actually discussing strats, like, you look up and like, oh, we have 5 seconds left. You gotta lock this in now. Like, it's just like, it can get away from you.
Like, I mean, they had been so comfortable on Raijin, and Raijin Terra was like I mean, that was like the sick nasty thing that came out of that set, really, in my opinion. Whenever a team had Raijin Terra, they were pounding the game. They weren't just winning. So if I had been in their position, I would have been like, Terra's sick, and we like Raijin. And that would have been my go-to probably. Or you could have done Terra Shibalanke, and then we probably would not have taken Raijin because Alpash was up, and then they would have had Terra, Shibalanke, and Raijin, and then we're fighting in the dark with a bunch of lightning balls and a Terra hole. So, but yeah, the other thing about that said is that Shibalanke got like over prioritized really hard because nobody wanted to fight in the dark in the finals. We picked it in the 4th game, like first pick, and we lost because we prioritized it higher than Naja, which was like, I don't know why we would ever do that looking at our team history, but we did it. And yeah, so we didn't fall for that. The only other thing that was super shocking about that draft was that Ice Ice took Rat after we just had a game where Rat couldn't play past 15 minutes in like a 40-minute game. So yeah. But other than that, I mean, I think the rest of the draft seemed pretty sound to me, honestly. Because I don't think they thought I think when I was talking to AJ, we banned Wukong because we were like, we hate Wukong, he smells bad. And then we were talking. Our big conversation was, because our concern was we can't ban a Wheelix or Fenrir. Oh no, we can't ban Fenrir because then we don't get Fenrir, and we're thinking about playing Fenrir. And we ban a Wheelix, they know that we want Fenrir, and then they take Fenrir, and then we don't have either of our characters that we want to play for support. So we were like, this sucks. this is a really uncomfortable position in the draft. And then I was like, hey, if we don't have anything else to ban, why don't we just like ban Ama? He seems to like it for some reason. Everyone was like, yeah, whatever. Let's just ban Ama. And apparently that was like the sick ban. Because AJ was like, yeah, you just won Worlds to that ban. I was like, okay, thank you. Like, I hate to say that it was like on a whim because we didn't like we couldn't ban the other stuff that we wanted to, but that's what it was. We were just like, okay. I mean, he played it, and it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, because I think afterwards, like, you know, Deathwalker made like his like afterworlds tier list, right? And like he's like Sox like, yeah, we kind of realized too late that Alma was really sick. And we wish we would have played that a little bit more. And it's like, yeah, looking back, like that, it's so weird because Alma's like up and down throughout the entire like year, right? Where like coming out
without like
into
any
season
changes
5,
really either.
yeah.
Like, just
Well, she had
everyone's like, yeah,
she got like
let's
dropped
do it.
5 power, right? That was it. That was like the big change to Alma throughout the year. It was like the 5 power drop or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
But like having been like every game pick ban as a support in solo sometimes to like nothing, and then kind of being brought back around at the end of the year, especially with Worlds. But it was always another weird thing. It's like it's so funny to like look at characters and like, all right, who's coming in, who's coming out, which gods are we going to see on the LAN just because it's LAN, and then like what are like the little metas, like Shablanke coming out of nowhere because of fighting in the dark, right? Like that was, you know, it's usually something that nobody really worries about, but then all of a sudden at LAN it was like, no, we can't, no. Like,
well, the thing that's weird, right, is there was a lot of gods that were like really, really good that a lot of teams like were like Obey was probably our hardest team to deal with drafting wise because they played Opwash. Opwash is broken. He is the most broken character in the game, and no one wanted to play him. So, and then Shibalanke is actually nuts because if he gets a lead, one, he's insane. If you try to auto trade him before the waves are there, he hits harder than you. And if you pair him with a Guardian that clears pretty well, they're always going to be able to fight into you and have kill pressure on you. Because the way darts, dash, and his bolas work, like he's always poking you, he's always super annoying. And his ult is like a global that makes it so you can't see what's happening around you and makes everyone panic. Like he's actually nuts, and we played him a lot during the split. And that was another guy that like I think he was being played a lot in the summer, and then he got nerfed, and then everyone decided he didn't exist anymore. But he like every ADC is relevant if you build crit on them, which was our other realization. We were like playing hunters that didn't build crit, and then we said, let's just build crit on all of them because poison star's the best item in the game, and that's what we did. But yeah, I don't know. There was a lot of characters that like people weren't looking at. I mean, we got. I'm not gonna say like you know that we didn't work really hard at it, but the stars definitely did align for us, right? Like Dignitas couldn't play Morrigan because Morrigan has spectator issues, so Zeros has like a god pool of 2 at that point that he's comfortable playing consistently at a world's level. Energy doesn't have Yamin, so we don't have to worry about Energy having a crazy like third world's run. Stuff like that. And then United, who we've been practicing against all the time, so they knew all of our strats inside and out, and our picks and bans stuff got knocked out by Trifecta in the first round. It was our tournament to win at that point, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of things had to go right. What would you say out of all of Worlds was I'll break it down. So at your Worlds during your games, like all of those, like your favorite moment, and then as a whole, like your experience at this year's Worlds, what was your favorite point?
Okay, so during the games, my favorite moment for sure was during that second game versus Rival. I remember I had like a very distinct feeling. I was like, wow, we're just gonna lose in like 3 games. This is awful. So we were like losing real bad. And then Cyclone just like walks in as Freya. He like has like his chest puffed out. He's fed as hell, and he just kills everyone at like 10 minutes. And I was like, wait a second, we don't have to lose. And like that's sort of like redemption where like we don't have to lose this set. That's like really sick. It was like amazing. I don't know. God bless Jared for bringing that home because I think hope was dwindling for the boys and the rest of the map. Everything about Worlds overall, I mean, aside from obviously like winning, because obviously being on that stage and winning was sick. Going out to dinner with Splice and then going to the after party and just seeing everyone, like I don't know. the validation was, like I said earlier, was like a really big thing for me, and having everyone like congratulate me and talk to me about the games and like, I mean, I didn't think I'd be a person that would really care that much about that, but it felt real good. It felt really good to have everyone like be excited for our team and excited for me and happy about how things went. I don't know. It was a very heartwarming feeling for sure.
Yeah, I believe it. Like the validation of what you've been doing and putting all of this time in your heart and soul, and then to achieve at the highest level at that thing, like, and then everybody be
Mhm.
like, "Hey, good job," like, and then
Yeah.
recognizing what you're doing. Like, like you've been posting on social all the stuff from your family and like talking to you and
Yeah.
congratulating you and dotting you and
Yeah.
like it's
Uh,
like it's really great to see just like that camaraderie, and it's like you like a roar too. Like, I mean, we had the picture come out of like the 3,000 people in attendance of DreamHack all wearing the Aurora jersey, like all
yeah.
surrounding him, right? Like that, all that, like
Yeah.
the family connection and everybody kind of giving you the support. Yeah, it's really nice and like touching to see. All right,
Mhm.
so we've been going for over an hour now, and you and I could probably sit down and like keep talking for a while, but we got to start winding it down. So,
All right.
anything else you wanna? Anything else we haven't touched on that you kind of want to touch on? Any topics? Anything you wanna just get off your chest or anything?
No, I feel like I've kind of talked on and on, haven't I? I feel like I've gotten it all kind of out there. I've
Yeah.
gone off the beaten path a little bit. So I think I'm
All
good to
right.
go
Well,
on
any
that.
shout outs you want to give? Any to either the org or people or just anything?
Yeah, shout out to my team that undoubtedly will watch parts of this, but not the whole thing, so they won't hear this shout out. But thank you for being great, even though you drive me off the wall frequently. Obviously, shout outs to Marty Novos and everyone at Splice. When we were in Rochester, you know, we had the pleasure of working with there's Cody, Christine. God, I'm gonna forget his name. I think it was Tyler. They were great. They were incredibly hospitable, and so was Jonathan. They took care of us. Obviously, Rochester had internet problems and all this other stuff that were outside of their control, but they did their best to be solid to us, and we really appreciate that. Having us all come out for the boot camp was really good. And then, yeah, shout outs to my family, my stream, my friends, all of them. They've all been like talking to me. I don't know, I've gotten a lot more attention from people than I ever expected to in my entire life, which has been so. Thank you to all of those people. Yeah, that feels really good. Thanks for having me.
All
Yeah,
right.
that'd be the last
Yeah,
one. This has
absolutely.
been good.
Thanks for coming on. I really enjoy one of my favorite things to do for the show is like interview coaches, right? Like I just coming from that background myself now and just being able to like talk to people at that high level and like kind of get inside your guys' brains. It's always interesting because there's always different viewpoints on Smite in the game and everything.
Mm,
So and I feel like especially this year, like the spotlight just hasn't been on coaches enough, right? Like during Worlds, it was weird to me. Like at the end, like they brought the teams out, they announced everybody, and then that was it. They announced the 5 players, and then you guys got your interview, and like that felt a
yeah,
little weird to me because like you guys are a part of the team just as much as they are at that point. So like, yeah, you guys got your own like spotlight with the interview, but it almost felt like, well, yeah, but they're not part of the team that's playing, right? And I was like, that still feels a little weird. So like I know I got my little show here, but like I'm definitely trying to like put the spotlight where I can on like,
mm,
some of the people behind the scenes because I think Smite is really big and the competitive scene has a lot going on that it's not just all the Barracudas of the world, right? Or the weekends. Like there's a lot of people, a lot of behind the scenes that don't get talked about or don't get the time to be heard a lot of the time.
mm,
So one thing I do want to say, so we've got your Twitter at Kabam91, and
yeah,
then since you got back from Worlds, you've also been streaming quite a bit too, right?
yeah. Streaming more than I intended to, but it's been fun. I'd say, yeah.
You don't sound
Um,
convinced. Like you sound like you're trying to convince yourself that you're having fun streaming, like it's actually happening. Like
well, you know
it
what's been
sounds like you
fun
lost
is
a
like
bet.
well, so we're obviously still trying to hit our hours for this month because we spent like most of the time not here. Shout outs to Hi-Rez. But yeah, I mean it's been fun. I haven't really been like I've been playing the game Smite, but I have not been paying attention while I've been playing. I've just been talking to my friends and bullshitting with them, and that's been fun. But I'm pretty much just passively clicking buttons while talking to chat, which is like the most streamer thing you can do on Smite, I'm pretty sure.
So what's your Twitch? Is it at Kabam91, at Kabam?
It is Kaboms. It is twitch.tv/Kaboms. So my name with an S at the end, that is me.
All right, there you go. Go follow him. It's you never know what you're gonna get in there. Like you said, it's a chiller stream.
Yeah, that's one word for it for sure.
All right, well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciated you. Love talking to you. Well, I can't wait to try to catch up with you after season 6 stuff. See where you land. See if you stay with Splice. See what happens, and get your opinion on. I'm sure we've got season 6 patch coming up within a couple months now, right? That's gonna be
it's happening. I don't know when, but it's coming.
Yeah, so like definitely gonna be looking towards I think I'm gonna do like a coach special and get like a bunch of different ideas. So I might reach out to you for that. But thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for watching. This is Around the Battleground. We will see you next time on the Battleground. Goodbye.